Yum was crouched down, leaning against a thick tree. Haruhiro crept up and tapped her lightly on the shoulder. She turned around, covering her mouth with her hand as she caught herself starting to talk. How did it go? Haruhiro asked quietly. Yum nodded in response, making hand and finger gestures. Maybe she was trying to communicate something, but he couldn't make sense of it at all. Since deciphering it seemed too difficult for him, Haruhiro leaned out from the shadow of the tree to look. It was there. This was the afternoon of what was effectively their second day as volunteer soldier trainees. Haruhiro and the others had come back to the same woods as yesterday, and they had finally found a spring. That was where it was. It was about the size of a human child and scrawny. Its skin was yellowish, wrinkly, and caked with mud. The little tufts of hair growing on it looked like seaweed, and it had pointy ears. It was facing away from them at the moment, so he couldn't see its face. It didn't seem to be wearing any sort of clothes, though there was a string around its neck. It was a mud goblin. It was crouched over, drinking from the spring. They could hear the unpleasant slurping sounds it was making. Haruhiro took a deep breath and looked behind him, trying his best not to make any noise. The other four, Minato, Renta, Shihoru, and Moguzo, had their heads poking out from some trees not far away, and they were looking at him. When Haruhiro gave a big nod, all of they nodded back. We finally found some prey. Let's do it. We're doing this. We have to. What's the signal? We never did decide on one. How am I supposed to let everyone know? Haruhiro decided to try raising his right hand. This is bad. I'm getting tense. Or, rather, I've been pretty tense all along. Listen, just do it. Yeah, let's kill this thing. When Haruhiro made a downward swinging motion with his hand, Renta charged headlong forwards with a battle cry. Haruhiro couldn't help but to think that he was an idiot. When he looked back to the mud goblin, it had jumped up surprised, and just finished looking their way. It is running away, Haruhiro yelped. There, Yum loosed an arrow. It missed. The mud goblin had tried to flee off to their right, but the arrow stabbed into the ground in front of it. It let out a cry of surprise and faltered. Nice one, Yum. Haruhiro unsheathed his dagger and rushed in. What the hell? I'm here first. This doesn't feel very thiefy, but I'll have to do it. Don't want to let it escape. Mud goblins, mud gobs, they have nice, round eyes, but they're ugly. It has a face like an old lady who hasn't bathed once in her entire life. Its teeth are all black and its tongue is purplish. It's not wearing anything other than the string around its neck. Well, it's buck naked and unsteady on its feet. The mud gob saw Haruhiro and started shouting noisily. I don't get why, but it's coming at me. Seriously, it wants to fight. Come on, there are 6 of us. Well, it doesn't know that. Its hands, target its wrists. Haruhiro took a slash at its left wrist. Slap! With a surprised squeak, the gob leapt back diagonally, landing in the spring. Did he miss? No, the mud gob had a thin scratch on its left wrist that was bleeding dark red blood. Looks like I did scratch him. It's a shallow wound, though. Kicking up water, the mud gob jumped out of the spring and came out swinging at Haruhiro. Is it coming? It's coming at me. You're kidding me. Stay away from me, you idiot. Erg. Haruhiro reacted at once by falling to the left, somehow getting out of the way of the mud gob's charge. Hatred. Renta got in close, swinging his longsword down hard at it, but anyone could tell that it was a sloppy strike. It missed, of course. Whoa! The mud gob cried out and gave Renta a good hard kick, sending him flying. While Renta was on his backside, the mud gob tried to get on top of him. Then, just in the nick of time, Minato stuck out his short staff, landing a blow on the mud gob's shoulder. The mud gob cried out in pain, hopping away from them. Marcy T. As Shihoru started to chant and draw elemental sigils with her staff, Renta shouted, Hey, your eyes are closed again. At her, Shihoru shrank back. Sorry, Moguzo, get in front of the mud gob. Minato barked orders. Everyone else, surround it. Don't let it get away. Yeah, Moguzo ran toward the mud gob with heavy steps, stabbing the blade of his bastard sword at it. Renta said, Fine, guess I'll have to, huh? As he rose to his feet and moved to the right side of the mud gob, Minato was on the left. Haruhiro and Yum, with her machete, positioned themselves behind it. Shihoru had her eyes wide open, and was aiming her staff towards the mud gob from far away. The mud gob looked around, taking steps in every direction and crying out loudly, like it wanted to run away but couldn't. Maybe that was just how Minato had wanted it. Moguzo, Renta tried to stick the mud gob with his long sword. Pile on the pressure, pressure, more pressure. With a great roar, Moguzo raised his bastard sword and swung, and swung, and swung. The mud gob dodged. As it nimbly ducked and weaved, Renta shouted, "Hey!" and took a stab at it with his long sword. The mud gob picked up a dry branch and threw it at Renta with a shout. Whoa! Renta took a step back, just managing to strike down the branch with the base of his long sword. Their encirclement broke down. The mud gob might have tried to flee, but Minato's short staff flashed immediately. The mud gob took a blow to the tip of its right shoulder, and howled in pain. Despite that, it turned towards Minato in an instant, screaming as fiercely as it could. Honestly, Haruhiro was startled. Even Minato looked like he'd backed off a bit. After all, it was scared. The mud gob was desperate. It didn't want to die. It wouldn't just let them kill it. It was going to kill them first. Kill, kill, kill. If nothing else, it would at least take them down with it. The mud gob was filled with the determination to do just that. Guys, Renta licked his lips over and over. Don't get cold feet on me now. It's kill or be killed. I'm gonna murder this thing and accumulate vice. Stay cautious, Minato said as he smacked the mud gob with his short staff again. Even though it took a solid hit that sent blood splattering, the mud gob glared at Minato, and grunted as if to say, so what? Gobsy's a real tough guy, huh? Yum said, her voice wavering a little. Tell me about it, thought Haruhiro. It had taken a blow to the head that was hard enough to send blood flying, but it was still fine. Umph, umph. Moguzo swung his bastard sword for 3 times, forcing the mud gob to back away. When it did, that meant it was forced closer to Haruhiro and Yum. This one's ours, Haru-kun, Yum said, and though it did make him think, hey wait, since when do you call me Haru-kun? She was right, they were going to have to take it out. When he shouted and went to take a stab at it with his dagger, it turned to face him. As the mud gob roared in his face, Haruhiro struggled against his urge to step backwards. He took one swing with his dagger, then another. It connected. He felt it strike something hard. The mud gob's right arm, between the elbow and wrist. Surprised, Haruhiro pulled his dagger back. This was the first time he'd cut anything other than the scarecrow-like practice dummies. It was kind of sickening. Wailing madly, the mud gob whirled around, splashing blood everywhere. As it tried to intimidate Haruhiro and the rest, it was 6-on-1. Haruhiro and the others had the mud gob surrounded. They could attack from any direction, yet no one did. Everyone was breathing heavily. Aside from Moguzo with his heavy sword, none of them had moved around enough that they should have needed to. What's with this? Haruhiro tried to get his breathing under control, but he just couldn't. What is this? Is the mud gob strong? Or are we just weak? Too weak. Can we really get by like this? Not a chance. If you just think about it, there's no way we can. We aren't cut out for this. I'm not cut out for fighting. I'm scary. I can't do this. Why am I doing this? Shouldn't I stop? But what would I do then? What would happen to me? Lives are at stake here, Minato shouted. There are lives at stake here. Ours and its. The goblin is serious. It doesn't get any more deadly serious than this. There's no way it's going to be easy, because no person, no living being, wants to die. Mark M. Park. Shihoru fired a bead of light from her staff. The bead of light flew between Moguzo and Minato, striking the mud gob right in the face. It howled in pain and confusion. Now, Minato commanded, striking the mud gob. Renta brought down his long sword, and buried it in the mud gob's shoulder. That's hard. Was that bone? Moguzo swung with all his might, slamming his bastard sword into the top of the mud gob's head. What power! Half or maybe 1/3 of its head caved in. We did it! The mud gob collapsed, and Renta pumped his fist with a hell yeah. Haruhiro began to sigh, but halfway through it turned to a gulp. The mud gob was getting back up, and quite nimbly at that. You've gotta be kidding me. Yum stared in disbelief. Haruhiro was sure he had to be mistaken somehow, though it didn't look like a mistake. The mud gob started running. It probably was trying to get away. Minato said what, looking flabbergasted, but still went for a leg sweep with his short staff. Surprisingly, the mud gob managed to jump and avoid it. Then, it came right towards Haruhiro. Was it trying to get past him? That's pushing your luck. Haruhiro caught the mud gob's right leg with his foot. Apparently it couldn't dodge this time, so the mud gob tripped and fell over. As Moguzo bellowed, ready to slam his bastard sword into the mud gob, Renta cut ahead of him. Out of my way, Moguzo. I'll strike the killing blow. Haruhiro looked away despite himself. There was an unpleasant noise, and Renta laughed maniacally. Lord Skullhell, did you see that? To accumulate vice, a dread knight takes life from a living being, and offers a part of its body at the guild altar. See? The ears are a bit big, so maybe a claw will do. Wait, whoa, huh? Haruhiro looked over at Renta, and was horrified. The mud gob was moving. It was crawling, trying to get somewhere. Shihoru let out a sob, on the verge of bursting into tears. Guess it doesn't want to die, huh? Yum said solemnly, putting her hands together in prayer. Rest in peace. No, Haruhiro hesitated a moment, then corrected her. It's not dead yet. We have to finish it. Minato raised his staff to swing. Otherwise, we'll only prolong its suffering. Haruhiro didn't want to watch, but he felt obligated to see this through to the end. Minato landed a painful blow on the mud gob. Once he confirmed it had stopped breathing, he closed his eyes and made the sign of the hexagram. Haruhiro thought he might say something to it, but Minato didn't speak. Perhaps he didn't want to make excuses for what he had done. Ah, Renta pointed at Minato. Minato, you jerk. You finished it off. I told you, if I'm not the one to do it, I can't accumulate vice. Oh, Minato said with a forced smile, scratching his head. Sorry, slipped my mind. Don't tell me your hand slipped. No, I didn't say my hand slipped. I said it slipped my mind. Like I care one way or the other. I want a do-over, you hear me? A do-over. How? We can't do it. Arg, that should have been my first vice, and now it's gone. Renta fell to all fours, punching the ground in frustration. Then he added, whatever. Haruhiro blinked. Whatever. It's done now. Nothing we can do about it. Renta stood up and went over to crouch beside the mud gob. Yuck, this is pretty grotesque. Our loot is this, I guess. There's something hanging from the string around its neck. What is this? Where? Haruhiro crouched down next to Renta, trying his best not to look at the mud gob itself. He looked closely at the string around its neck. Renta was right. There were definitely things on the string. One was an animal fang or something that had a hole drilled through it. The other was pretty dirty, but it was a coin. Isn't that a silver coin? It's got a hole in it, though. Hey! Renta went to yank the string off, but quickly drew his hand back. Haruhiro, you do it. This thing's filthy. Fine, I guess. Haruhiro cut the string with his dagger, and pulled the fang and coin off. Looks like it really is a silver coin. Well, it's got a hole in it, though. Can we sell this? Actually, I'm impressed it managed to put a hole in it. That seems like a lot of work. Well, whatever the case, Minato placed a hand on Haruhiro's shoulder. This is our first win. Renta threw his chest out with pride, and it's all thanks to me. Yeah, sure, Yum said coldly. Renta clicked his tongue, glaring at Yum. You're still holding a grudge against me? For a girl with such tiny breasts, you're pretty vindictive. You know that. There's no connection between breast size and being vindictive. Well, if there isn't one, then forget about it already. It's water under the bridge. Let me say, though, vindictiveness has long been known to cause booblessness. Don't call me boobless. If they're just tiny, that's not so bad at least. Boobless, 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 boobless. Hello, Miss Boobless. Goodbye, boobless. Arg. Yum's face turned bright red, and her cheeks puffed up. She knocked an arrow and took aim at Renta. Yum's gonna shoot, and she's got a feeling this arrow won't miss. Stop, you, arg, sorry. Renta spun around and fell to his hands and knees before her. It was a spinning kowtow. It won't happen again. Okay, forgive me. Why are you saying forgive me like it's an order? That oughta be, please forgive me. Yum-sama, I beg of you. Yum-sama, I'm sorry. I beg your forgiveness. I'll do anything, please. Well, if you insist. Yum's cheeks were still puffed up, but she loosened up on her bowstring faster than anyone expected, gesturing towards the spring with her chin. Jump in, huh? Go dive in the spring. If you do, Yum will let it go for today. Idiot, you no way. Who do you think would do that? Yum drew back her bowstring again. If that's how you want it, fine. I'll just shoot you. I'll dive. Good luck with that, Haruhiro said, slapping Renta on the shoulder. Minato said, be careful, okay? You don't have to tell me that. As Renta stood on the edge of the spring, ready to dive, Haruhiro heard Shihoro mutter, serves you right, under her breath. Renta muttered, here goes, and he dived immediately after that. So he probably missed the comment. You're going to catch a cold, Moguzo said. There were a number of pawn shops in Alterna's marketplace, but none of them would pay more than 30 copper for a silver coin with a hole in it. It was hard to accept that one hole on it reduced its value to a third of its original value. But, in a happy surprise, the fang was worth 1 silver. It turned out that there were 3 kinds of wolves in the frontier of Grimgar: forest wolves, also known as grey wolves, white wolves, which were servants of the white god Elhit, and finally black wolves, which served Elhit's enemy, the black god Rigel. That fang had come from a black wolf. Apparently, black wolf fangs were believed to hold magical power, and they were often used as an ingredient in talismans. With that, their earnings for the day came to 1 silver and 30 copper. 20 copper went to rooms for the night, and then they split the remaining 1 silver and 10 copper evenly amongst themselves. There was 2 copper left at the end, so Minato held onto it to be added to the pile for the next time they divided up their earnings. Each of them got food at the stalls in the market, and when they reached the dilapidated lodging house for volunteer soldiers in the west of town, they finally felt like they'd made it home. Even though anyone with a Corps badge could use it, the lodging house was largely empty. The 4 guys washed themselves off in a bathing room that looked like someone had just laid down some stone on a dirt floor. Afterward, they dropped by the girls' room to tell Yum and Shihoro the bath was ready before going back to their own room. At the time, Haruhiro was pretty sleepy. He lay down on his hay bed and closed his eyes right away. The volunteer soldier lodging house had 4-person and 6-person rooms, but no matter which you chose, it was 10 copper a night for trainees. As for why the 4- and 6-person rooms cost the same, it was probably because the rooms themselves were the same size, while the 6-person room had 2 more beds. It's more cramped compared to 4-person room. The 6-person room's beds were small too, so even if 170-centimeter tall Haruhiro might fit in one of the 6-person room beds, 186-centimeter tall Moguzo probably wouldn't. There were 2 bunk beds stuffed with hay. Other than that, there were 2 wall-mounted lamps. That was all the amenities in the lodging house of 4-person rooms. They couldn't do anything but sleep here. Besides, they had no intention of trying to. They had an early morning tomorrow, so Haruhiro figured it was time to get some shut-eye. The bed beside him creaked loudly. Apparently Moguzo had just laid down. Moguzo had the lower bunk of the bed next to Minato, while Renta had the top. Haruhiro was in the top bunk, while Minato would be sleeping in the one beneath him. Minato, you still up? Yeah, I'm awake. Something up? Nah, nothing really. It wasn't true that he had nothing he wanted to talk about, like what Minato thought about making 18 copper in a day. Of the 10 silver Bri Chen had given him, he had spent 4 copper on skewers the first day, then 8 silver to join the Thieves Guild, which had left him with 1 silver and 96 copper at that point. Once training ended, he had spent 4 copper on lodgings yesterday, and 10 on food, with an income of 0. Today he had spent 12 copper on food, while making 18 copper. His cash on hand at the moment was 1 silver and 88 copper. As a side note, he had left 60 copper with the Yorozu deposit company because it was cumbersome to carry it all around. That was going to cost him a deposit fee. Haruhiro wasn't too bad off, but Moguzo was another story. They had split his share of the room fee between them yesterday, but Moguzo must have borrowed money from Manoto for food. He had eaten a lot today. He had a big body to keep fed, after all. Moguzo probably had less than nothing since he was living in debt. When might the same happen to Haruhiro? No, for now at least, no one other than Moguzo. If no one will lend you money, 0 is the bottom. Nothing, nada, zilch. If it came to that, what would they do? We need to earn more. Food and lodgings cost around 15 copper a day, so I want to make double of that. Double? Is double enough? The volunteer soldier lodging house is old and squalid. Having a pit full of urine and excrement for a toilet is disgusting. And while the bathing room is fine now, while it's warm, when the cold season comes around, it's going to be torture. Hay beds aren't exactly comfy, either. I wish I could get a blanket or something. He wanted to stay somewhere better than this. He didn't even have a change of underwear, and he'd washed them while in the bath, so he wouldn't have any to sleep in, because he'd left them out to dry overnight. It looked like he, Minato, and Renta weren't the type who needed to shave often, but Moguzo was starting to look unkempt, so he'd have liked to have a razor too. A razor, or a small knife, that was just another thing they'd have to buy. We're going to be in trouble if we don't start earning more, aren't we? Actually, it was a coincidence that the mud gob happened to have a black wolf fang we were able to sell for 1 silver. We may have gotten luckier than usual today. So, wait, what does that mean? Today's income wasn't so bad. It was on the higher end for us. Even if they managed to find a mud gob tomorrow, and managed to take it down without incident, it might only have a silver coin with a hole in it. One of those was worth 30 copper, split between the 6 of them. That was 5 copper each. They'd be in the red even if they camped out. It's looking pretty bad for us. When you think about it, he wanted to say that, but he decided against it. Once he said something, it would cause problems too big to ignore. He'd have to do something before it was too late. Well, today wasn't so bad, and no one knows what the future may bring. Tomorrow may be better than today, so it's fine for now, at least. It's nothing, said Haruhiro. Okay, replied Manoto, that's fine. Then, okay, Renta suddenly leapt down from the top bunk. I'm going. Huh? Haruhiro sat up. Where are you going? I let it go yesterday, Renta said with a strangely stern look on his face. But I just can't do that today. A man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. Huh? You're not making any sense here. You are so dense. How can you not get it? It's obvious. I'm going to the bath. The bath. The bath. For what? The girls are in there now, right? They're stark naked, washing their hair and bodies. If they are, there's only one thing I ought to be doing, right? You can't be planning to peep. Ahihi, here comes Renta. Wait, you can't do that. Haruhiro got down out of the bed, chasing after Renta. But Renta was incredibly quick at times like this. He wasn't able to catch him all the way to the bathing room. The bathing room was outside. It was attached to the lodging house, but it was in an annex, so it might have been more accurate to call it the bathing hut. Renta crouched down, pressing his ear up against the door. Haruhiro called out, but Renta glared angrily and brought a finger to his lips. He looked ready to kill someone. Intimidated, Haruhiro fell silent without intending to. No, I can't let him intimidate me. Haruhiro crept up, whispering, you can't do this in Renta's ear. There are lines you just shouldn't cross. Like I care. Renta mouthed at him. Even if it makes me a failure as a person, I'll become an ogre or a demon, if that's what it takes to accomplish my goals. Okay, now you're just blowing things out of proportion. I'm just telling you to show some restraint. Restraint? Renta shrugged. I don't know the meaning of the word. It's not in my dictionary, that's for sure. Hey, what? Renta pointed to the door. I can hear inside their voices. Ahehiha. Haruhiro nearly pressed his ear against the door as well, but stopped short. He thought, no, I'm curious, but I don't want to lower myself to Renta's level. Renta gave a silent but salacious laugh, staring Haruhiro in the eye. Don't hold back, Haruhiro, you've already given in to temptation. If you hadn't, you'd have already dragged me away kicking and screaming, or shouted to let them know. That had hit him where it hurt. Haruhiro held his chest, looking around the area. He nearly groaned. There was someone off in the darkness. To someone's, they were coming this way. Who was it? Hey, waved one of them. Manato. The giant behind him was Moguzo. Hey, as Haruhiro was about to call out to them, but Manato brought a finger to his lips. It must have caught Renta by surprise, as his eyes were wide. You guys, not you, too. Manato. Haruhiro thought in dismay. Is that it? Are you okay with this? When he looked to them questioningly, Manato silently nodded. Moguzo, too, he mouthed. Haruhiro let out a silent laugh. I give no our baser instincts win this round. Honestly, we're just curious, right? We're not going to look, right? We won't go as far as peeping, right? There's a painless window in the hut that's high enough. He can't see into it, but he can see the light leaking out, and the steam rising from it. It's all very tempting, but it's too high to get to, right? If someone were to let me up on their shoulders or use someone as a platform, it might be doable, but we're not planning to go that far, right? We won't do it, right? We seriously won't. Not a chance. Haruhiro leaned in and pressed his ear up against the door. He could hear them. The sound was faint. No, he needed to focus harder. He should be able to hear more than that. There, he could hear them now, very clearly, even when you wear that. Was that Yum's voice? What? That one was Shihoru. They surrey big. Well, what are your boobs, Shihoru? They're big. Oh, and their shape is adorable too. Adorable. Shihoru's words, by fate or by chance, expressed exactly what Haruhiro was thinking. No, probably not just Haruhiro. Renta, Manato, and Moguzo must all have been thinking the same thing. Big and adorable. How does that work? They had no idea. Yup, they're adorable. Mind if Yum touches them? Wah, that's not. No, it tickles. Eek, phew. Yum thought they'd feel good. And boy do they ever. Why no Anya? Yeah, you're making kitty cat noises now, Shihoru. Please, Yum, not so hard. Boink, boink. Look at them bounce. Don't say that, it's embarrassing. It'd be fun if Yums were like this. Look what Yum's stuck with. I think you're cute though. Yum. Wah, that's not true at all. What about Yum is cute? Well, how should I put it? You aren't fat like me, you're soft. I don't think you're fat, Shihoru. Yum has more flab than you do. Well, the way you look soft is tasty. So, tasty, Shihoru, you say the weirdest things. Yum isn't edible. I know that. It's just, well, a metaphor. You could say, want to try a bite? Go on. Oh, but, just sink your teeth right in. Yum wouldn't mind if you take just a little from right here. Why would she do that? Haruhiro pulled his ear away from the door, and shook his head. No. What are Yum and Shihoru doing? What's going on in there? This is crazy. My imagination is running wild. Is that what girls are like? I don't know. How could I know? When he looked, Manato, Moguzo, and even Renta had backed away from the door. That figures. Of course they would. It was too much for us to handle. What a mystery. Every mystery leads to another, and now our heads are a mess. Haruhiro looked Manato in the eyes, trying to send a message. Let's go back to our own room. But Manato turned his eyes in another direction. Following his glance, Haruhiro saw Renta looking up to the night sky. No, that wasn't what he was looking at. Not the sky. It was the window. Renta stared at that window with the eyes of a ravenous beast. He stood up straight, walking over beneath the window. He reached out for it, stretching. He couldn't reach. Renta turned to them. He had the face of a demon. Don't you guys want to see? Are you seriously okay not doing it? You want to pass up this golden opportunity. Can you say for sure that you won't regret it? Well, can you? Haruhiro ground his teeth. That's not. I might regret it. Minato was candid. I can't say for certain that I won't. Still, what good can come of us going any further? What do you think will happen? Renta scowled. What do you mean by that? Think for a second. We are excited enough as is. Any more is dangerous. If we push ourselves too far, then what? We go back to the room. Our room. A room with 4 guys. I don't want to go through that. It's not too late to turn back now. Haruhiro shuddered. That's Minato for you. He can see it would be bad. No, a tragedy. But, right now, if we stop here, we can hold on to this as a good memory. I'm sure we can. We should be able to. It's probably possible, I guess. This was the line. If they stepped over it, there would be no going back. If possible, he wanted all of them to come back from it. He crossed the line, but he did nothing. If only he had acted differently back then. He wanted to avoid anything happening that might make him feel that way later. Let's go back. Haruhiro grabbed Renta by the arm. He was ready to drag him away by force if necessary. Yet an unexpected ambush awaited him. Moguzo stood up slowly, walked over to beneath the window, then leaned forward, putting his hands against the wall. A platform. Was he trying to become a platform? Moguzo looked to Haruhiro and the others, giving them a thumbs up. Everyone climb up. Don't worry about me. Haruhiro looked to Renta, then to Minato. They looked like they'd been struck by lightning. I can't, Haruhiro thought. Moguzo's resolve weighed on him. It was too heavy. He couldn't shake himself free from it. He couldn't do it. There was no way he could. It was impossible to shake free. I have to do it. Haruhiro and Minato nodded to each other. Which of them would go first? Haruhiro was happy to go later, or last even. First up would be Renta. It was his idea. After all, Renta was crying. His eyes were streaming tears. He wasn't just crying. His nose was running too. Without wiping his snot or tears, Renta went over and slapped Moguzo on the back. Come on, man. Don't make me cry like this. You're such a great guy. Haruhiro whispered. Hey, and the next moment turned and ran the other way. Minato was well ahead of him. That was Minato for you. Quick on his feet. Why does Yum hear Renta's voice? Shouted Yum from inside the bathing hut. Oh, crap. Renta bolted. No, it wasn't me. It was Moguzo. Yeah, Moguzo. I didn't see or hear nothing. Wah! Moguzo tripped spectacularly and Shiharu shrieked. Renta, you numbskull. They heard Yum kick the wall hard from inside. You creep. You lech. You pervert. Go far away and never come back. They confessed their sins to Yum and Shihoru, prostrating themselves on the ground as they apologized profusely. Haruhiro, Minato, and Moguzo did. That is, Renta said, I didn't see nothing, so quit your whining, disgusting everyone with his aggressive lack of contrition. It went further than that, though. Yum and Shihoru began to resolutely ignore Renta's existence. Haruhiro couldn't say for certain if that had made their teamwork any worse or not, but it probably had no real effect. The following day, the day after that, and the day after that, Haruhiro and the others earned basically nothing. When by saying basically nothing, that meant their income was close to zero. Okay, let's be blunt, it's zero. Haruhiro couldn't bring himself to ask his comrades about their pocketbooks, so he didn't have a full grasp of their finance. He himself, however, he knew in meticulous detail. Over the 3 days, he'd been 14 copper in the red, 13 copper in the red, and 12 copper in the red respectively. A total of 39 copper in the red. That's he didn't include the less than 1 copper he owed in deposit fees. Haruhiro has a total asset of 1 silver and 49 copper. His hopes to buy daily necessities from the market, or to buy a new pair of underwear, were long since dashed. Of course, when it came to his hope of moving somewhere better than the volunteer soldier lodging house, it would be presumptuous to even dream of something that far beyond his means. He had been cutting his food expenses down to 1 copper a day, but how low could he get them? That was the biggest concern for him right now. The shock of going 3 days without income was big, so incredibly big that since coming back to the lodging house and bathing today, no one had spoken a word. All of the others were lying on their beds. Maybe they were asleep already. No, probably not. None of them could possibly be so dense as to be able to sleep soundly under current conditions. Well, or so he thought, except Renta was snoring. While Haruhiro was so disgusted, it went all the way back around to a sort of admiration. Well, me too. I ought to get some shut-eye. All of this thinking isn't doing me any good. Something good might happen tomorrow. Anyway, today's over now. I can't do anything about that. Tomorrow's what's important now. What will I do tomorrow? Give it my all and go hunting for prey. I have to earn something. Even if it's just 1 copper, I guess one's not enough. Yeah, that's no good. I'll earn a lot. As much as I can. Gotta do something before the money runs out. As he tossed and turned, he heard someone getting up in the bunk below him. Minato. Yeah, you're up. It's still night. Or rather, the night just started. Running to the washroom or something. Nah, Minato had gotten out of bed, it seemed. I'm going out for a bit. I probably don't need to say this, but I'll be coming back, so don't worry. Huh? You're going out? At this time of night? The night's just getting started. Minato smiled slightly. See you later. You must be tired. Don't wait up for me. Go ahead and sleep. Oh, okay. Haruhiro nodded. Then it occurred to him that maybe he shouldn't let Minato go alone. But, by the time it did, Minato had left the room. To assuage his anxiety, he struck up a conversation with Moguzo, who hadn't gotten to sleep yet, talking about this and that, but at some point, Haruhiro nodded off. When he woke up, Minato was back. He'd even gotten out of bed earlier than him. Morning, Haruhiro. I want to try going to a new place today. What do you think? Last night, Minato had gone to Sherry's Tavern, a place in Flower Garden Street where volunteer soldiers gathered. Minato didn't go into details, but it must have been pretty expensive. You could have taken me with you, Haruhiro tried saying. Haruhiro, you can drink? Minato asked in response. I don't know. Haruhiro tilted his head in contemplation. Have I drunk before? Maybe not. Well, as for me, Minato smiled mischievously. It turns out I might just like it. So, maybe part of the reason I went there was that I wanted to drink. Everyone was sick and tired of the forest by this point, so there was no resistance to Minato's proposal when he made it. Around 4 kilometers northwest of Alterna, a bit over an hour's walk away, there was a city. Well, no, it would be more correct to say that there was what once had been a city. At least for the moment, nobody lived there. No human. That is, 80% of the defensive wall that had once protected the city had now crumbled. More than half the buildings had collapsed, probably 70 to 80%. It was full of rubble, with weeds growing in places. There were rusted swords and spears lying around, some of them stabbed into the ground. Even more terrifying were the skeletons scattered all over. There was some kind of animal. They couldn't decide if it was a cat or dog, walking on top of the roofs or crumbling walls, but it ran away immediately when they tried to get close. There were crows cawing everywhere. When they looked towards the source, they found one ruin had become home to tens of crows or possibly more. Long ago, Demoro had been the second largest city in Arabakia. It had been much larger than Alterna. However, the no-life King's allied forces had invaded and laid waste to it, bringing it under the control of undead. Things were different now. After the breakup of the Undying Empire, the goblins, who had once been a slave race with no king, revolted and drove out the undead to make the city theirs. Now, Demoro was a den of goblins. However, the southeast corner of Demoro, known as the Old City, had gone unmaintained and fallen to ruins. Even so, there were goblins in the Old City of Demoro. There's just the one. I think. Haruhiro had hidden behind a wall that looked like it would collapse if he put his full weight against it, spying into a building that has a missing ceiling and one missing wall. He's a thief, so he was gradually becoming the party's go-to person for scouting, but he hadn't learned the sneaking or burglary skills, so he was really just an ordinary guy who could open locks with the lock-picking skill. He wondered if it was really wise to have him handle this. Mud goblins, like the one they had taken down in the forest, were a variety of goblin. Apparently, the goblin here certainly did look similar to the mud goblin, but this one had yellowish green skin and wasn't filthy. It even had clothes on it, and it was carrying a club or something at its waist. The bag slung over its shoulder must have been a goblin pouch. The mud goblin had kept its valuables on a string around its neck, but these goblins carried bags like that one around. They had heard one of the traits of goblins was that they would put any valuable things they had in there, carrying it with them at all times. The goblin was sitting while leaning against the wall, with its arms crossed. Its face was cast downwards and its eyes closed. It was still daylight hours, but was he taking a nap? That was what it looked like. Haruhiro quickly, but as quietly as he could manage, headed back to where the others were standing by. One goblin. Looks like it's asleep. Good. Let's kill it. Minato nodded with a grim look. Since Moguzo's in chainmail, he can't help but make noise. So first Haruhiro, Renta, and I will get up close. Moguzo, and Shihoru will close in after that. If we can get in close without waking up the goblin, the three of us will snuff it out. If it wakes, use your bow, and Shihoru use magic to target it from a distance. Moguzu, you'll charge up front. If it becomes a straight-out battle, we'll use the same formation as we used before. Everyone surrounds it so it can't escape. Everyone nodded at once. Having gone 3 days without an income, even Renta was a picture of seriousness. With Minato taking point, the three of them set out. They reached the building quickly enough, but it was everything that came after that which would take time. The building was full of rubble, and they couldn't afford to step on anything. Still, they ended up making noise for a number of times, and it took longer than expected to reach. They were close enough that with another step or two, the goblin would be in striking range. Moguzo and the others were just outside the house. Minato looked in turn to Haruhiro, then Renta. Renta pointed to himself. Haruhiro wasn't sure leaving this to Renta was wise, but Minato waved to him, the signal for action. Renta took a deep breath and walked up to the goblin. Without raising it overhead first, he stabbed his longsword into the goblin's chest. The goblin groaned, and its eyes shot open. It spotted Renta. It then understood what had happened to itself. The goblin screamed, reaching out for Renta's face. Renta leaned back, so Minato shouted, "You can't do that," at him. At the same time, he drew his short staff, clubbing and stabbing at the goblin with it repeatedly. Damn it! Renta pushed his longsword in and twisted it. Haruhiro was unable to do anything. If he got closer, he'd probably just get in Minato and Renta's way. The goblin continued to writhe in agony, shouting what must have been a torrent of verbal abuse as it grew weaker and weaker. The goblin didn't put up such a fight. When caught sleeping by Haruhiro and the rest, eventually, it stopped twitching. Is it dead? Renta peeked at the goblin's face, his shoulders heaving with heavy breaths. Haruhiro imagined the goblin reviving, and then tearing Renta's nose right off with its teeth, but it didn't happen. Minato closed his eyes, making the sign of the hexagram. It looked like it was over. Moguzo, and Shihoru entered the building. Renta planted a foot on the goblin's chest and yanked his longsword free. Gotta lop off a claw or something. Vice, he muttered to himself. Minato delicately removed the goblin's pouch that was slung over its shoulder. He opened it, pouring out the contents. Haruhiro's eyes bulged. Silver coins. Maybe goblins liked to collect human currency. What's more, unlike the mud gob's coin, these ones were whole free. There were 4 undamaged silver coins. For silver, there was also a rock that was clear like glass. Also, some bones. They didn't know what animal they came from, but but they were finger bones, or some other thin bones. Oh, Yum's eyes went wide. Amazing, that's a new record, isn't it? Though it's still just our second time. For silver, Shihoru said, blinking repeatedly. She didn't know what to say, it seemed. Moguzo had let out an impressed groan, then kept his mouth shut. Manoto looked to the sky. With a sigh he said, it's still not enough. Shaking his head, we have to keep this up. It happened to go easily this time, but it won't always be this way. Keep on your toes, and let's find our next target. Oh, come on! Renta slapped Manoto on the back. Don't be such a square. We just had a big win. All thanks to me. What's the harm in celebrating a little? Manoto knitted his brows for a moment, but quickly went back to a smile. I suppose you're right. I don't mind you celebrating a bit. You did a good job, Renta. I know, right? I'm so awesome, aren't I? Especially the way I put that gob to the sword with a cruel and merciless smile. I must have looked like a real dread knight there, huh? Haruhiro said, nah, waving his hand. You looked just as frantic as ever, Renta. You moron. I was cool as a cucumber. Where were you even looking, man? Oh, I know. That's what it was. You couldn't see it with those sleepy-looking eyes of yours. You've run that joke into the ground already. I'm not gonna give you a response every time. Sorry, give me a response. You've got to respond. You're making me feel kinda pitiful here. Everyone laughed for a while. Afterward, they did as Manoto suggested, bracing themselves for what was coming as they searched for their next target. Their first day in Damoro's old city went smoothly. When they considered their days so far, the way it went so smoothly scared them. By evening, Haruhiro and the others had taken down a total of 4 goblins, including the one they had caught sleeping. From their 4 goblin pouches, they had acquired a sum total of 8 silver, a clear stone, a black stone, a reddish stone, assorted bones and fangs, something resembling a key, a gear, and some sort of metal fittings. When they sold all of them, their loot came to a total of 10 silver and 45 copper, split into 6 ways. Each received 1 silver and 74 copper, with 1 copper left over. Food and lodgings that day cost him 15 copper, so Haruhiro's total assets came to 3 silver and 8 copper. If tomorrow went smoothly as well, he had promised himself a pair of underwear and a knife. The next day, however, went quite poorly. When they found a group of 5 goblins, Renta said they should charge in, but they took a vote, and he was overruled by the majority who wanted to avoid the fight, unless they caught one of the creatures by surprise. A single goblin was tough, and 2 was risky, so taking on 5 was out of the question. Haruhiro thought backing down was the right choice there. However, after that, they didn't spot any groups of 2 or fewer until the end of the day. When they were getting ready to head home, they came face to face with a lone goblin. As a result, they made 1 silver that day. Just 1 silver. If he thought about it that way, Haruhiro felt like he'd be cursed, though. They could have gone into the red, but instead they had made 1 silver. Haruhiro decided to look at it that way. The underwear and knife could wait until they were making more profit. On their 3rd day in the old city of Damoro, they tried making a simple map while searching for goblins. It had been Manoto's idea, and he'd also procured the small notebook and pencils they'd used to make it. Manoto said that if they got the layout of the land, taking notes on where goblins were, it was guaranteed to come in handy. Either way, it was pretty fun to walk through the old city, methodically mapping it out, saying, let's go over that way next, or, we haven't gone this way yet, let's go. They would naturally start to form objectives. They learned the roads too. When they entered an unmapped area, it put them on edge, and when they were in a place they already had on their map, they could relax a little. That day, they took down 3 goblins, and once the loot was sold, they had 72 coppers each. They didn't let it go to their heads. they weren't making that much money. However, Shihoru and Yum had said they wanted to go shopping, so Haruhiro was going around the market too. While he was looking, he come across a pair of cloth underwear. He haggled to his hardest, but even a used pair cost 25 copper. He had stuff to carry now, so he bought a bag to carry it all in out of necessity. There were a good number of used ones at a reasonable price, so he bought a durable-looking one made out of hemp for 30 copper. Compared to the underwear, it felt like a real bargain. After returning to the volunteer soldier lodging house, they all talked about what they'd bought, where they'd bought it, and what they wanted to buy next. They got really into it, so they had trouble getting to sleep afterward. Once Renta, who had been prattling incessantly until not long ago, suddenly fell asleep, breathing softly. It wasn't long before Moguzo could be heard snoring too. Haruhiro tried to fall asleep. He was exhausted, sleepy even, yet for some reason his consciousness was making no attempt to descend into the depths of slumber. Manato, he tried calling out, and, as expected, Manato was awake and responded with a yeah. Haruhiro was happy to get a response, but he didn't really have anything to say to him. Well, that wasn't true. They had a lot to talk about. He just couldn't come up with anything so quickly. He had to say something since staying quiet too long would be weird. After grasping hurriedly for something to say, "Thank you," was what came out, and he was embarrassed. "What's that for, all of a sudden?" Manato laughed. "I'm the one who ought to be grateful." "Huh? You're grateful? Why?" "To everyone, for being my comrades. I'm thankful for that. I'm sure when I say it like this, it probably comes across as a lie, but I really do feel that way." "No, I don't think you're lying." "But," Haruhiro chewed the inside of his right cheek, thinking, "How should I put this? We're always relying on you. If you hadn't been there for us, we'd have been in serious trouble. Depending how things had gone, we might not still have been alive by this point. That goes both ways. Without you and the others, there's no telling what might have happened to me. We aren't in a situation where you can survive on your own, you realize." Haruhiro hesitated on whether to say this or not, but he wasn't good at hiding his feelings. He lacked of patience. "Now, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I think you could have found any number of people willing to be your comrades, by asking someone to let you join their party, for instance, a volunteer soldier party." Honestly, the thought never really crossed my mind. You know, I'm probably not the type that can put up with having to bow his head to others. Hierarchical relationships too. I doubt I'm any good at handling those. I don't remember what I was doing before I came here, so I don't know for sure. Now that he mentions it, that's true. When Haruhiro tried to remember his past, it was like grasping at something soft and fluffy. It never retained its shape. He had forgotten that fact entirely. Maybe he just hadn't had the leeway to think about it. "It might be the same for me," he admitted. Somehow, Manato paused there, hesitating for a second. "Somehow, I feel like I'm not the sort of person that anyone should be treating as a comrade." That's not true, I think, but I can't say it outright. I only know Manato as he's been since coming here. That's all Manato knows about himself, too. Even Manato didn't know Manato himself. Of course, it was the same with Haruhiro. The more he thought, the less he understood, so it was better not to think about it at all. Nothing would come of thinking about it. After all, he couldn't remember anything. He had things to do, things he had to do in order to live. He needed to earn money. As for what the past Manato was like, Haruhiro said with forced cheerfulness, "It doesn't matter. No one cares. It's the current Manato that's our comrade. You're like our leader. We'd be in trouble without you here for us. I need the rest of you too." Haruhiro nodded, but Manato was in the bunk beneath him, so Manato wouldn't see the nod. He needed to say it out loud, but what could he say? While he was wondering, Manato burst out laughing. "Still, it's just so weird. All of this, what are we even doing? Swords and sorcery. It's like we're in a game or something." "A game? Huh? You've got that?" Haruhiro blinked, then tilted his head in confusion. "A game? What is that?" Manato thought deeply for a moment, as well. I don't know, but that's what I said just now. It's like a game, it came to mind at the time. Well, when you said it, I felt like you were right. But what sort of game? A game. Something felt off. It was on the tip of his tongue, but he just couldn't get it to come out. That sort of off feeling. Still, he felt like they should put an end to this conversation. They had bigger things to worry about. Haruhiro and the others would go to the old city of Damuro again tomorrow. He yawned. It felt like he could finally get to sleep. There's one headed your way, Renta, Haruhiro called out, and Renta responded immediately. I already knew that. One of the three goblins Moguzo and Manado had lured to the front line was headed for Yume and Shihoru in the rear. Haruhiro and Renta were the middle guard, so they were supposed to try to catch the goblins from behind or to the side, but they needed to defend the back line as well. So Renta, who was closer to the two of them, went to face the goblin. It had been 13 days since they had begun fighting goblins in the old city of Damuro, so they could pull off this sort of team play without a word to each other, though, every once in a while, Renta would obsess over his own fighting style or skills, shooting whatever teamwork they had going in the foot completely. Fortunately, this time he was fine. Anger, or not, Renta leapt in from outside his opponent's range, long sword outthrust, to use his most recently acquired skill. It missed spectacularly. What? You're no ordinary goblin, aren't you? It's clearly just a normal goblin, man, Haruhiro said, looking to Manado with a wink. Moguzo and Manado could be counted on to handle their two goblins. Haruhiro ran over and got behind the goblin that was pressuring Renta with a rusty sword. Damn it! Renta deflected its rusty blade, glancing to Haruhiro. Don't look at me, thought Haruhiro as he took aim. Renta wasn't the only one who had learned a new skill. Each of them had learned a new one from their guilds. However, they had only just learned them, so they only just knew how to perform them. Haruhiro wasn't confident that he could use his skill effectively in battle, but if he didn't make an active effort to use it, he would never get past that point. I paid good money to learn this skill, and I swear I'll master it, he vowed. That's easier said than done though. The goblin was cautious, turning often to watch its own back, hopping around nimbly and swinging its rusty sword to keep him in check. Haruhiro just couldn't line up a good strike. If Renta could keep it occupied, he'd be fine, but he figured it would be a mistake to count on that actually happening. Renta wasn't the type to let the enemy's focus fall entirely on him. Neither was Haruhiro, for that matter. Both of them were too afraid to get into a serious exchange of blows, so they tried to circle around to get behind it, or at least to the side of it. Because of that, they went in circles around the goblin, and of course, the goblin spun in circles trying not to let them get behind it, so no one had any clue what was going on. Geez, what are you two doing? Yume pulled her machete, and came at the goblin swinging. It looked like she'd taken it by surprise. It froze up for a second. Yume swung her machete as if drawing an X-shaped, diagonal cross. The goblin cried out, falling back from the sudden onslaught, but it took a shallow cut to its shoulder. Its back was to Haruhiro. Now, thought Haruhiro, at the same time his body had already moved on its own. In a breath, he closed the gap, and thrust his dagger into the goblin's back with a twist. This was his skill, backstab, perhaps because the goblin was only wearing soft leather armor. Haruhiro's dagger sunk in a good 10 cm. The goblin tried to turn around, so Haruhiro wrenched his dagger out of it. Falling back, the goblin coughed up blood, and collapsed before it can do whatever it had been about to try to do next. It was still twitching, but Haruhiro could tell it was at death's door. If it hadn't been, it would have flailed about more violently. Haruhiro looked back and forth from his dagger to the fallen goblin. Did I hit it in a good spot? Maybe, or a bad spot? Whoa! I've gotta finish it. Renta leapt on the goblin, slamming his longsword through its neck. Nice, I got my vice. Yume arched her eyebrows. Yume thinks this after every battle, but Dread Knights sure are savage. Don't say savage. Use the more elegant term, atrocious. We Dread Knights serve the Dark God, Lord Skullhell. We are atrocious and inhumane, cold and ruthless knights with neither blood nor tears. Rel, act. Shihoru drew elemental sigils with her staff, beginning to chant a spell. Vel, Darsh. Mages used the power of magical creatures called elementals. Shihoru had called on a shadow elemental, which looked like a mass of black seaweed. It made a signature Wong noise as it flew. This was the shadow beat spell. Instead of Arv magic, the magic of fire, Canaan magic, the magic of ice, or Foal's magic, the magic of electricity, Shihoru had chosen to learn Darsh magic, the magic of shadow. In some ways, Haruhiro felt that Shihoru's own personality had come out in that decision. The shadow elemental hit the goblin. Monado was fighting in the back of the head, but it wasn't just the goblin's head that it affected. The goblin's body convulsed for a moment, and it let out a strange croak. Instead of heat, cold, electricity, or blunt force, Shadow Beat was a spell that used hyper-oscillation to deal damage. Monado immediately followed up with a blow from his short staff, then kicked the goblin to the ground. Renta savaged the fallen goblin. Take this, hatred. Hitting them when they were down was a specialty of Renta's. There was no need to use a skill on an already weakened goblin that had already fallen on the ground. But that sort of reasoning had no place in Renta's mind. Renta tried to bisect the goblin with his longsword, but he failed. The longsword struck the side of the goblin's head and bounced off its skull with a wet thud. That made Renta lose it. Damn it, you're just a stupid goblin. Take this, and this, and this. While Renta tormented the dying goblin, Haruhiro went to take care of the remaining one that Moguzo was facing. No, it looked like Haruhiro wouldn't need to do anything. The goblin swung its rusty sword with a cry, but Moguzo blocked it with his bastard sword. Their blades locked. Moguzo had the advantage now. He was strong and had learned a skill that let him shift from locking blades to attacking. Moguzo wound his bastard sword around the rusty blade, slashing the goblin in the face with the tip. This was his skill, wind. Moguzo wasn't fast, but he was pretty skillful. The goblin faltered and stepped back. Haruhiro cried out, "Go!" and Moguzo went. He got in close, slashing diagonally with all his strength. Thanks. Rage Blow was the most basic of basic skills taught to a warrior in beginner's training. It looked like something anyone could copy after seeing it, but it was probably difficult to find the right timing to actually land a hit with it. Whenever Moguzo used Rage Blow, he shouted, "Thanks." So within the party they called it the Thanks Slash. It was a cute name that belied a rather powerful strike. Moguzo's sword entered through the goblin's shoulder, and made it halfway through its chest. With a grunt, he swung his sword, and the goblin was sent flying. Yahoo! Renta rushed over to the goblin, impaling it with his longsword. Haruhiro had to agree with Yum. Renta really was savage. He acted like a total barbarian, slashing off the goblin's ear with a knife and shouting, "Gwahaha! That's 3 vices in a row. That makes 11 vices total." My demon's powered up. Whenever it feels like it, it'll whisper in the enemy's ear to distract it. That's awesome. Whenever it feels like it, Haruhiro said with a sigh. Your demon sure is useless, huh? Hey, I won't let that pass. Haruhiro, don't you go dissing Zodiac-kun, or I'll curse you. Zodiac-kun was the name Renta had given his demon. Well, no, Zodiac was its proper name. Zodiac-kun was more of a nickname. Either way, it was never any help. I mean, you can only call it out at night. Anyway, moron, when I reach 11 vices, its rank goes up, so I'll be able to call it at dusk and just before the sun rises. Generally, we head back to Alterna by dusk, and you're asleep when the sun comes up. Well, yeah, but Yum had her cheeks puffed up angrily, with her eyes shining. It was such a complex expression. Unlike its owner Renta, Zodiac-kun is just a little bit cuter. You know, I'm not his owner. You can't own a demon like some sort of pet. If anything, Zodiac-kun is possessing me. He's a demon, after all. Which means, Shihoru looked at the ground, laughing sinisterly. Before he could curse Haruhiro, Renta's already been cursed. Well, yeah, I suppose I am. Seriously, Zodiac-kun, Are you cursing me? No way, right? Zodiac-kun, what's your take on this? Wait, no, it's daytime, I can't ask him. Good work, everyone. Manoto looked to each of them with a smile. I'll heal your wounds, so, actually, it looks like no one's injured. Still, if you're feeling any pain, just tell me. But if everyone thinks they're fine, let's check the goblin pouches. Me, I'll do it. Let me do it, shouted Renta. In the 3 goblin pouches, they found 7 silver coins, 2 stones that looked like they might be worth something, 3 fangs or bones which they didn't know whether they could sell or not, as well as some assorted junk they figured they were worthless, depending on what price the stones went for. They had over 10 silver if they were lucky, but at least 8 even if they weren't. They had left Alterna at 7 in the morning and arrive in the old city of Damoro at 8, judging by the angle of the sun. It was now past noon. Haruhiro and the others gave the goblins a simple burial, or rather just cleared them away, then took an afternoon break at a spot not far away. Each of them had brought bread, dried meat, or other foodstuffs in their backpacks. It was time to enjoy a nice lunch. Oh, gotta pray, Yum shaved off a thin slice of the dried meat with her knife, leaving it on the ground as she put her hands together, and closed her eyes in prayer. White God, El-hit-chan, thank you for everything. Yum'll share some of her food with you, so keep looking out for her. Okay, so, about what you're doing there, Haruhiro said, tearing off a piece of bread. It came from Tatan's bakery just outside of West Town. It was rock hard, but it was cheap and tasted decent enough. That's a ritual that's laid out in the rules of the Hunters Guild, isn't it? You have to offer a little of your food to your god, right? Sure do. Yum's eyes were wide with enthusiasm, and she turned to face him. The white god El-hit-chan is this really big wolf, you all see, and there's this really big black god called Rigel who's a wolf, too. El-hit and Rigel are on super bad terms with each other, because El-hit-chan watches over us hunters. We can get through our daily hunting without any accidents. So, basically, it's an act of worship. Hunters worship the white god El-hit, but you're calling your god El-hit-chan, and offering to share some of your food. Is that okay? Nah, it's fine, Yum chuckled. El-hit-chan is forgiving, so Yum doesn't think El-hit-chan get mad at her over something like that. You all know. Actually, El-hit-chan's never gotten mad at Yum. Your feelings, Shihoru said, while carefully holding something that looked like a donut. I think your feelings are what gets through to your god, though that's just what I think. Manoto took a sip from a leather water skin, then said, yeah, with a nod. The words you say are important, but the feeling you put into saying them is even more important. The prayers we priests use in our light magic won't work if we say the words wrong, but I don't think your prayers to El-hit are the same. Yum puts a lot of feeling into it. Yum spread her arms wide to show them. Yum goes to sleep at night. Yeah, well, when she does, El-hit-chan shows up in her dreams pretty often. Yum asked, can I ride on your back, El-hit-chan? And when she did, El-hit-chan said, sure. You all see, Yum went for a ride on El-hit-chan and we ran around like whoosh. El-hit-chan is crazy fast, Yum said. This is amazing. This story. Renta chewed his dried meat loudly while putting on a sour face. It's got an actual point at the end, right? I've held my tongue and listened for a long time, so if you don't have a good point, I'm gonna snap. Like, seriously, a point? Yum cocked her head to the side and blinked at him repeatedly. No, there isn't one. Trip, Renta shouted and did an incredible face fault. Are you stupid? Don't tell long stories with no point. What'll you do if I drown to death, unable to escape from the spiral of broken expectations? Go ahead, Shihoru muttered under her breath. I wish you'd drown to death. Renta pointed at Shihoru. I heard that. I heard you, Shihoru. Just now, you just told me to go die, didn't you? Huh, I only said that I wished you'd drown. You're even making requests about the cause of death. You're horrible. That's the lowest thing you can do as a person. You're the most rotten, horrible girl in all of history. That's what you are. Don't mind him, Shihoru. Yum held Shihoru tight, patting her on the head. The guy saying it is the lowest of the low after all. You've done nothing wrong, Shihoru. It's Mr. Terrible here who's to blame. He's so low, he may not even be human. I'm human. Okay, even if you have curly hair, Haruhiro said. Yes, even with my curly hair. Renta began to agree. Then he turned to glare at Haruhiro, pulling at his hair as he did. Curly hair has nothing to do with it. Heck, I'd even consider making it a requirement for being human. Those without curly hair are not human. How's that? If that's how it's going to be, Moguzo said, swallowing a hard, fist-sized bunhole. Maybe I don't want to be human. Too. Me too. Same. Hold on. An oddly serious look fell over Minato's face. Let's think this over calmly, okay? Let's think over whether curly hair really is the problem here. I think not. Curly hair has done us no wrong. Curly hair is not to blame here. In fact, I'd say curly hair may be the victim in all this. Renta pulled at his hair. The victim? This guy. So, what? Then the villain is me. Are you saying it's all my fault that curly hair turned evil? I was kidding, Renta. Minato, you're always grinning, so it's hard to tell when you're joking. And when you're serious, you're a black-bellied bastard wearing a smile as a mask. He is not. Shihoru stood up and shouted. Her face was bright red, and she looked like steam might start rising out of her ears any second. He is not black-bellied, not Minato-kun. He isn't black-bellied or a bastard. You take that back. Right now. Do it. Sure. Renta was taken aback. But, do I have to? Really? It's not like I actually think it, you know? If I have to take abuse, isn't it fair that I get to dish some out too? Take it back. Fine. I'll do it. I'll correct myself. Minato's belly isn't black. Minato's belly is white. I see him in the bath every day, so I'd know. It's white, you know. Minato's belly. Seriously, he's fair. For a guy. Actually, even by girl standards, he'd be fair. White. Shihoru looked a little dizzy. Minato-kun's white belly, the bath. Am I fair? Really? Minato compared his skin's color against his priest robes. I don't think I'm that fair. Haruhiro, am I fair? Yeah, sort of. Haruhiro looked from Shihoru to Minato. Comparing Minato is fair, but Shihoru's even fairer. But that's not really the point right now. I thought it might be the case, but this pretty much confirms it. Shihoru has a thing for Minato. Does he not notice it? I don't think he's danced like that. So that isn't it. Is he pretending not to notice, then? If he is, maybe Minato doesn't feel the same way about her. Poor Shihoru. Though I'm not sure it's my place to be feeling sorry for her. You could say you're fair. Yup, you're fair. Your skin's smooth too. Skin, smooth. Shihoru looked like she might collapse. Smooth skin. Shihoru, you okay? Yum supported her. If you fantasize too much, it'll only cause problems. You should try to keep it under control. Shihoru. Naya. Shihoru's eyes were swirling, and she clung on to Yum tightly. Shoot, thought Haruhiro. Maybe I went too far there. She was acting kind of cute there, or funny at least, so I couldn't help myself. Renta scoffed at them, then started eating his bread. He seemed unamused by this turn of events. I wonder why. Maybe Renta has a thing for Shihoru. It looks like Shihoru is into Minato, so maybe he's upset about that. If so, it's time for Renta to take a good, long look at himself. For starters, buddy, you've done nothing that would make the girls love you, and everything that would make them loathe you. We've become a good party, Minato said quietly to himself. We can take on up to 3 goblins at a time now. No one even got hurt, so I think it's safe to assume we could handle more. Yum's much better with a machete than she is with a bow. She has a lot of strength. If we think about our methods some more, we might be able to handle 4. Oh, about that, Haruhiro imagined it. Moguzo and Minato would both handle 1. Haruhiro, Renta, and Yum would handle the other 2. If Shihoru caught one with shadow beat so they could finish it off quickly, he felt like they could pull it off. Yeah, 4 sounds doable. I knew we'd be able to rely on Moguzo. After all, he's got such a big body. Just by being there, he intimidates the enemy, and with his precise swordsmanship, he can get what needs doing done. Ah, I'd been thinking that too. Moguzo's talented. Moguzo swallowed a bun. Really? You think? I don't know why, but I like doing detailed work. It doesn't suit you, Renta yelled, taking out his frustration on him. Moguzo just shrugged. Yeah, I think so too. Hey, it's a good thing, Haruhiro said, glaring at Renta slightly. Moguzo isn't sloppy, unlike a certain someone. Oh, what? You saying that to me? Me, the guy they call the Gale Speed Machine of Precision. Yum glared coldly at Renta while patting Shiharu reassuringly on the head. Nobody's ever called you that, Renta. Renta's amazing too. Judging from the subdued expression on Minato's face, he wasn't joking, especially the way he's always ready to attack. He's not afraid of failure, so I think he's improved at using his skills faster than any of us. The rest of us, myself included, are more cautious, you could say. Without Renta around, we might not be willing to take that next step forward. Yeah, I guess, Renta said, looking about worriedly. Had that flustered him? Well, you know what they call me, the whirlwind machine of forward momentum. Yeah, Haruhiro teased. What happened to the Gale Speed Machine of Precision? As for Shihoru, Minato paused for a breath. Minato has noticed Shihoru's feelings for him. After all, Haruhiro surmised, Shihoru is always aware of her surroundings. Darsh magic has a lot of spells that can confuse or bind the target, if I recall. That lets her help us when needed. You wanted to learn Darsh magic so you could help us, didn't you, Shihoru? Shihoru stared blankly for a second, then nodded without a word. Haruhiro thought she'd passed up the easy-to-understand choices like fire, ice, or electricity, and chose a more niche option instead, because that's just what Shihoru's like. Was he wrong? It wasn't just a matter of her tastes. Shihoru put some genuine consideration into it. He's so stupid, he don't know a thing about her. Minato looked to Yum. I think Yum may well be the bravest of us all. She isn't afraid of anything. As the healer, I wish she'd be more careful, but I'm also glad that Yum might be there to help if anything happens. Yum said, pointing to herself, her face melting with glee. You sure? Is Yum really that brave? Yum doesn't think she's ever been told that before, though maybe she doesn't think many things are scary. Yum hopes you'll give her a pass for being a hunter who can't use a bow. Everyone has weaknesses and things they can't do, Minato said, as if he's trying to convince himself of it as well. When you're alone, those failings can be fatal, but we're a party. We can make up for each other's shortcomings. Oh, yeah. Yum nodded repeatedly. That's right. Yum may cause trouble for all of you going forward, but she'll do her bestest. Renta snorted derisively. You mean bestest? Like best, not breastest. Breastest sounds like, you'd need some special kind of breasts. Breastest. Yum touched her own breasts. Yum wonders what kind of breasts are the breastest breasts. How distantly related are they to Yum's tiny breasts? It would be awkward to just leave that hanging. So Haruhiro offered, maybe they're in the same family. Yum looked at Haruhiro with a totally serious expression on her face. Do you think they're in the same family, Haru-kun? I don't know, I wonder. Yum wonders too. The breastest breasts. It does sound a little cute, the Moguzo started to say, but when everyone turned to look at him, sweat beaded on his forehead, and he waved his hands while he shook his head. It was nothing. Really nothing. Now I'm curious, said Shihoru. With Shihoru staring at him, Moguzo cast his eyes downward, then apologized with a sorry, so no one pushed him about it any further. But what had Moguzo started to say? Haruhiro was pretty curious, if not to the same degree as Shihoru. After that, they continued to make small talk over lunch until the time came to start their afternoon work. As they were leaving, something occurred to Haruhiro. Minato praised all of the others, but did he say a single thing about me? Maybe he just forgot. Or was it that there was nothing praiseworthy about Haruhiro? Does Minato have a low opinion of me? Maybe. We talk a lot, I think. Maybe I'm only useful as someone to talk to. It worried him. but it was a little late to ask, "Hey, Minato, what about me?" That would have been far too embarrassing. Well, he'd probably just forgotten, or the conversation moved on before he could get to Haruhiro, that was all. It still made Haruhiro a little anxious, but that was how he decided to take it. "Focus, man, you need to focus." "Found some." Haruhiro raised a hand, signaling the group to stop. They would all hide in the shadows until things were scouted out. Of course, Haruhiro would go alone to do that. There were rare occasions when Renta wanted to come along, but, honestly, Haruhiro felt it was easier for him to go alone. He only needed to worry about himself that way. Once he saved up enough money, sneaking is one of the thief techniques he definitely want to learn. Of course, he's doing his best not to make any noise while walking now, but there must be some trick to it. He want to know what that is. He want Barbara-sensei to teach it to him. The goblins were in a broken down, two-floor building made out of stone. The second floor had largely collapsed, and part of the wall on the first floor had crumbled in places as well. On the second floor, which was more like an open balcony, there was a goblin clad in solid-looking metal armor with a sword slung over its back, while on the first floor there was another goblin sitting on the ground. It was a big one. Most goblins were between 120 centimeters and 130 centimeters tall. If they reached 140 centimeters, they were pretty big for their kind. They were a race of creatures the size of human children, but this goblin there was nothing like that. From a distance it was hard to tell its exact height, but it was easily 1, maybe 2, their size larger than the goblin upstairs. I've never seen a goblin like that before. As for equipment, is that chainmail is wearing? It's even got a simple helmet. Can't tell what weapons it has from here. I've searched the area around the building, and it doesn't look like there are any more. There are 2 goblins, the armored goblin and the really big goblin. Haruhiro went back to the others. "It's dangerous. There are only 2. But one of them's huge. It might be as big as I am." A hobgoblin. Minato's eyes widened a little. They're a subrace of goblins, with a larger build than the ordinary ones. They're stupid brutes that the goblins use like slaves, so maybe that's what that one is. "Oh, yeah," Renta licked his lips. "If it's got a slave, that could be a high-ranking gob, don't you think? If it is, it's gotta have some good loot, for sure." Haruhiro stroked his chin. It did have plated metal armor on. The hobgoblin was wearing chainmail and a helmet. It might have been large enough for one of us humans to wear. "Ooh," Moguzo groaned in approval. Since, as a warrior, Moguzo faced the enemy in straight-up battle, defensive items were important to him, but they were also expensive. New ones were well out of their price range, and if they went with used goods, they'd have to search hard to find ones that fit, or go to an armor blacksmith to have them resized. That was why all of them were still using the stuff their guilds had given them. 2 of them, Minato lowered his eyes. He seemed uncertain. Yum looked up diagonally in thought. "Yum thinks we can handle 2 of them, though. If Shihoru grasped her staff tight, were to target one first, and manage to hit it with a spell, it would be easier to handle things after that. I think, Yum'll try whooshing some arrows at it, too. Even if she misses, the gobbies'll get scared, so then you can go right at 'em." Minato looked at his comrades' faces. They were all eager to fight. Perhaps his earlier praise had raised their morale, because they were more fired up than usual. Haruhiro wasn't, thus he felt a bit left out because of that, but he didn't want to be a wet blanket. Haruhiro said, "Guess we're doing this," and Minato nodded. "Okay, let's do it." The plan came together in no time. Haruhiro, Yum, and Shihoru would go first, starting the attack from long range. Once the enemy noticed them, Moguzo and Minato would move up to the front. Moguzo would take the hobgob and Minato would take the armored gob. Haruhiro, Renta and Yum would attack from behind or to the sides, while Shihoru would support them with magic from a distance. They got in a circle, all putting their hands in the center. Minato yelled Faito, and they all threw their hands up at once and shouted Ipotsu. At some point, they had started doing this to get their spirits up, but why they did it remained a mystery to Haruhiro. What is Fido Ipotsu, I wonder? He commented. I dunno. Shihoru tilted her head to the side, puzzled, but doing it gives me this vague feeling of nostalgia. Yum gets that feeling too, but she doesn't know what it is. Weird, huh? Haruhiro approached the two-story building with Yum and Shihoru in tow. Minato, Moguzo, and Renda were following them too, about 6 or 7 meters behind. Whatever the range of a bow was, magic had a range of around 10 meters. Can we get close enough to be 10 meters away? That might be a bit difficult, more like impossible, not to mention there was a wall in front. It's about 15 meters away from the building, but if we go past it, the gobs will notice us. Haruhiro brought his face next to Shihoru's ear. He was about to whisper something to her. She had a distinctive, sweet smell coming from her, and that made it hard for him to breathe. Shihoru, do you have something on? Huh? What do you mean? No, never mind. Sorry, do you think you can hit them from here? It's a bit far, I know. I'll try. I have zero confidence, though. Shihoru brought her hand to her bosom. Taking a deep breath, Yum readied her bow and knocked an arrow. The gobs weren't looking in their direction. The two popped up from behind the wall, and Shihoru began drawing elemental sigils with her staff. Rel, Act, Vel, Darsh. With a Wong, a shadow elemental that looked like a blob of black seaweed launched from the tip of Shihoru's staff. At the same time, Yum let an arrow fly. The arrow sailed over the armored gob's head, while the shadow elemental struck the hobgob in the left arm, causing it to sputter and convulse. It looked like the armored gob had noticed the arrow. He turned their way and Haruhiro cried out, "We've been spotted. We're going in." Minato gave the order at once. The hobgob picked up a spiked club that had been left at its feet, rising unsteadily. It looked like the shadow beat spell had worked. The armored gob had something in its hands. What was that? A weapon. There was something that looked like a bow mounted on the end of a sturdy stalk. The armored gob turned to point it at them. Haruhiro put a hand on Yum and Shihoru's shoulders. "Get behind cover," he tried to say. The arrow flew before he could. Haruhiro pushed Shihoru and Yum down, causing them to land on their backsides. Haruhiro stepped backwards with a groan. Then came the pain. In the left side of his chest. It was there. An arrow. It hurt. It hurt. It hurt. It hurt. Haruhiro crouched, changing position. His wound still hurt. It hurt so bad that he couldn't breathe. Shihoru let out a little scream, while Yum put a hand on Haruhiro's back. "Haru-kun," he gasped, unable to say it hurt. "Don't touch me, just don't. It hurts, this is bad. I'm gonna die, aren't I?" "Me? Die? No, that won't happen. I don't think so. I don't want to die, at least. It hurts, though, it really hurts. Help, someone, this is no good. I can't go on like this." This was what in Haruhiro's mind. "Haruhiro, it's Minato. Minato's here for him." Minato suddenly tore the arrow out. It felt like something important had been torn out with it, and Haruhiro coughed up blood. Minato didn't worry about it, making the sign of the hexagram and saying a prayer. "Oh light, may Lumiris divine protection be upon you." Cure. Light shot out of Minato's hands, closing up Haruhiro's wound. Haruhiro think that he probably healed, but the pain won't go away. Haruhiro breathed in, and in, and in. It hurt too much to breathe out. With time, the pain lessened. He could breathe properly. Haruhiro tried touching the right side of his chest. It was soaked with blood, but it didn't hurt. "Minato!" Renta shouted. "Hurry up! We can't keep this up." Minato shouted, "You're fine now, right?" And as soon as Haruhiro nodded, he took off running. "Oh, right. In the time while Haruhiro was being healed after getting hit, the battle had kept going. He looked over towards the building. There was an intense battle going on, with Moguzo against the hobgob, while Renta and Yum against the armored goblin. Was Minato planning to go assist Renta and Yum? A bead of light from Shihoru's magic missile spell struck the hobgob, but it didn't even shake it. Haruhiro jumped hurriedly to his feet. With Minato going to help Renta and Yum, they'd manage somehow. Haruhiro needed to do something about the hobgob. Moguzo, hang in there. Haruhiro called out to Moguzo as he took up a position behind the hobgob. Its attention must have been focused solely on Moguzo in front of it. Because the hobgob didn't even look at Haruhiro, it would be easy to line up a backstab like this, or, at least it should have been. But he just couldn't get close enough. The hobgob's height was somewhere between Haruhiro and Moguzo. It looked like it was thicker set than Moguzo too. Its spiked club looked to be made out of wood, but it was pretty big. If one of them took a good hit from that thing, even Moguzo with his chainmail wouldn't get off unharmed. Chainmail, right. The hobgob's chainmail is the problem. It's not just on its upper body, it's even wearing pants made out of link chain. Then there's the helmet on top of that. You could call it a perfect defense. Can I even do anything with my dagger? Thanks. Moguzo let loose his special attack, the thanks slash. Haruhiro was ready to applaud for a second, but then found himself agape. Moguzo's bastard sword had hit the hobgob's left shoulder, and yet the hobgob merely staggered a little, not missing a beat before it counterattacked. Moguzo was almost too late in deflecting the incoming club. No, it was pushing him back. Moguzo's stance fell apart. This is bad. Moguzo's gonna get taken out. Why, you? Haruhiro body checked the hobgob, trying to stab it with his dagger. There was an unpleasant noise, but no good. The blade wouldn't go through. It bounced off. Still, the hobgob stumbled forward. Then it turned to face Haruhiro. The club's coming. Haruhiro jumped out of the way. Whoa, that's scary. It didn't even graze me. I had room to spare, but that was dangerous. It felt like my organs curled up inside me, like I was more dead than alive. Haruhiro backed away. He had no other choice. I can't do this. Rel. Act. Vel. Darsh. Shihoru chanted a spell. A shadow elemental slammed into the hobgob's flank, causing hyper vibrations. Moguzo brought his bastard sword down on the convulsing hobgob. Hung! A blow to the head. Sparks flew. The helmet was dented, and the hobgob staggered. Haruhiro shouted, "Now's our chance," and rushed in to help. He'd give it a flying kick. The hobgob was scary, but not if he could just knock it off its feet before he could jump. Minato called him. Haruhiro, get over here. Rent is down. What? He looked over to see Renta on the ground, bleeding from the neck, his neck. Minato was trying to check Renta's wounds, which mean you needed to face the armored gob alone. Damn, that's not good. Haruhiro charged at the armored gob, which was shrieking and swinging a sharp sword at her, as it chased after Yum. Hey, gob, over here. That caught its attention, but now he had to trade blows with it. Not that he could. The armored gob nimbly swung around a sword that was about the same length as Renta's long sword. Haruhiro ran around. It was taking all his effort just dodge, evade, and generally run away. The armored gob was more quick-witted than any goblin they had faced before. With the skillful swordplay it was demonstrating, he started to suspect it had undergone some sort of specialist training. If he carelessly tried to parry the armored gob's blows with something as flimsy as a dagger, who knew what would happen to him? He worried whether Moguzo was alright on his own, but he couldn't afford to look over to check. Brush clearer. Yum swung at the armored gob from behind, with a powerful sideways sweep with her machete. However, it appeared it had been anticipated. The armored gob turned and easily parried the machete, knocking it from Yum's hands, then went on to follow it up with another attack. Not happening. Haruhiro sprung himself at the armored gob. He didn't want to think it, but maybe the gob had predicted this too, as it turned around, swinging down its sword at him. Oh, crap! Haruhiro tried to catch the blow with his dagger. No good. he can't stop it completely. There was a scream of metal on metal as the armored gob's sword ran down the blade. He couldn't stop it, even with the hand guard. It bit into Haruhiro's right arm. Youch! Haruhiro dropped his dagger. The armored gob pushed in further. He's gonna cut me down, thought Haruhiro. This was a close call. Anger! It was Renta. Renta leapt in from the side, thrusting. The armored gob crouched and got out of the way, not missing a breath before shifting to counterattack. Renta fell back. Right away, he retreated diagonally. Damn it, this is bull. You're just a goddamn gob. Renta wasn't looking so good. He had gone pale, and he was sweating profusely. It looked like the wound had been healed, but that didn't bring back all the blood he'd lost. Still, he had come just in the nick of time. Haruhiro had survived. It hurts, though. My right arm. That cut went really deep. I'll pick up the dagger with my left. I can't get my right arm to move. It hurts. Haruhiro. Minato rushed in, getting ready to use his light magic right away. Oh light, may Lumira's divine protection be upon you. Cure. Gritting his teeth and bearing the pain, Haruhiro checked his surroundings while Minato healed him. Moguzo was fending off the hobgob's fierce attacks somehow, but he was having a really hard time of it. He was starting to look a little unsteady on his feet. They probably couldn't count on any more support from Shihoru. She was crouched down, probably after overusing her magic. Renta, somehow, was managing to slip away from the armored gob's attacks. It looked like Yum was hurt somewhere, possibly her arm. Okay, Minato touched Haruhiro's right arm, then yelled to Yum, Yum, get over here. I'll cure you. Yum is fine. She can keep fighting. Just get over here. Haruhiro, trade places with Yum. On it, Haruhiro did what Minato had said, but he had some misgivings. Is this going to be okay? Minato was running short of breath. Hasn't he used magic too many times in a short span? But Haruhiro was a thief. He didn't know much about magic. Besides, between himself and Minato, whose judgment did he trust more? Minato's, of course. Haruhiro didn't have that much self-confidence. It'll be fine like this. It should be fine. It has to be. Haruhiro switched places with Yum. I want to attack the armored gob, but I just can't get myself to do it. If I attack, I'm scared it'll get me with a counterattack. Is it the same for Renta? The armored gob is tough. There are no openings to attack. On top of that, it put on a helmet at some point. Plated armor and a helmet. This is hopeless. Even if I get a lucky hit with my dagger, it'll bounce off. It's questionable whether Renta's longsword would do any better. Maybe Moguzo's bastard sword will do. But he has his hands full fighting the hobgob, and he's probably losing that fight right now. We've already lost. He suddenly thought, yeah, we've lost. We can't win. There's nothing we can do to win this. Honestly, I must have known. I must have realized it a while ago. This is what losing looks like. We're losing. If we lose, what happens to us? We get taken out. We die. All of us. Haruhiro looked over to Minato. Minato was still healing Yum. No, it looked like he'd finished. They were coming over his way now. Haruhiro, go help Moguzo, Minato said, and Haruhiro nodded reflexively. Is this okay? Well, I do need to help Moguzo, that's for sure. Haruhiro tried to get behind the hobgob. That was when it happened. Gaheh! The hobgob let out a bestial roar, slamming its club into Moguzo. Moguzo turned his bastard sword sideways, blocking it with a grunt of exertion, but the hobgob didn't stop. Nga, nga, nga. It battered Moguzo's bastard sword with its club, again, and again, harder and harder. Its club was made out of wood, so why didn't it break? Moguzo was unyielding. He held his bastard sword by the hilt and blade, blocking the club with it. He was managing to hold it off somehow, but the hobgob was at an overwhelming advantage. Nga, 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 gaha, it hollered. Moguzo was finally forced to take a knee. He was bleeding from the head. He had one of the club's spikes gotten him. The hobgob kicked Moguzo down, trying to get on top of him. I can't let that happen. It'll be bad. Seriously, bad. The next thing he knew, Haruhiro was grappling the hobgob from behind. It would have been nice if he could pin its arms behind its back, but that was impossible. The hobgob thrashed around violently, trying to throw him off as Haruhiro held on for dear life. Whoa! Oh, wah! You're doing fine, Haruhiro. Keep buying time like that. Minato was trying to treat Moguzo apparently, and you want me to keep this up while you do that? You're kidding me, right? No way, it's not even possible. The hobgob cried, Enga, and elbowed Haruhiro as he clung to its back. That got me in the belly. It doesn't just hurt. I'm fainting. Not good. If I pass out, that's the end. If it throws me off, it'll be seriously bad. I'll die. I'll absolutely die. Ah, what he had been dreading happened. How? He had no idea. The hobgob threw Haruhiro off its back, slammed him into the ground, then kicked him around. Haruhiro couldn't breathe. Haruhiro said, "Help! Help me!" Who was he hoping would save him? He didn't know, but help came. Smash! Minato's short staff struck the hobgob in the head, but the hobgob was wearing a helmet. Even so, it seemed to have had some effect. He had probably given it a mild concussion. Minato kept striking the hobgob, crying out with each blow, "Haruhiro, get up! Run! Everyone, run away!" That's it, Haruhiro thought, leaping to his feet. That's what we do. We run. Running is all we can do. He started to take off, but quickly stopped. Minato, what about you? I'm coming too, obviously. Now, hurry up and go. Even as he attacked the hobgob, Minato was trying to get away. Moguzo, who was back up after Minato healed his head injury, bellowed, "Thanks," unleashing a rage blow at the hobgob. While it didn't hit, it did make it back off. Renta and Yum quickly turned and fled. Shihoro was trying to run too. With a battle cry, the armored gob slashed Moguzo in the back, but thanks to his chainmail, it seemed he was fine. Haruhiro raced to catch up with Renta, looking back over his shoulder as he went. Minato, that's enough. Everyone's gotten away. I know. Minato jumped backwards, giving the hobgob a two-thrust combo when it charged after him. The hobgob stopped in its tracks. Minato executed a brilliant change in direction, slipping past the armored gob's sword. In no time, he was close to catching up with Haruhiro. It was too early to breathe easy, though. Haruhiro went to turn around. Just as he did, he saw the armored gob throw something. It spun through the air, probably hitting Minato in the back. Minato let out a grunt, nearly stumbling, so Haruhiro was sure of it. Minato, I'm fine. Minato steadied himself immediately. He's still got a steady gait, so it doesn't sound like it's a deep wound. The hobgob and armored gob are coming after us. We've got to run. For now, we just have to run. It was a good thing they had made a map. Thanks to the work they had done on it, they had most of the layout of the old city of Damoro in their heads. That allowed them to avoid getting lost, and to avoid dangerous areas with lots of goblins. Haruhiro and the party ran. Even when their breath ran short, their lungs screamed, and they felt like they were going to die. They kept on running, even after they had lost sight of the hobgob and armored gob for a while. Minato was the first to stop running. No, that wasn't it. Minato suddenly collapsed onto the ground. Haruhiro tried to call Minato's name, but he had lost his voice. His back. In Minato's back, it was there. Something. A blade. A curved blade. Something like a throwing knife. No one said anything. They all stared at Minato. They couldn't say anything. What could they have said? Minato tried to get up. He couldn't. He just managed to turn over onto his side. Oh, Ao, I think we're fine. Now, Minato. Haruhiro crouched by Minato's side. But was it okay to touch him, or not? He didn't know. Minato, you're wound. Magic. That's right. Use magic to cure it. Oh, yeah. Minato brought his right hand to his forehead. It fell limply to the ground. I can't do it. I can't use magic. Don't talk. Renta shouted. Don't you talk. Just make yourself comfortable. Comfortable. Wait, how are you supposed to do that? Shihoro walked over unsteadily, sinking to the ground at Minato's side, across from Haruhiro. She reached out. Her finger touched the throwing knife. The moment it did, she jerked her hand back. Shihoru's face had gone ghastly pale. Minato's face looked even worse. It wasn't blanched or livid. It was ashen. Moguzo went rigid, standing there like he was some sort of huge ornament. What? You messed up her hair. What do we do? What? Haruhiro clawed at his chest. What do we do? What can we do? Think. There has to be something. There can't be nothing. Tell me, please, Minato. Minato was wheezing, his breath unsteady. You're gonna be okay, alright, Minato. You're gonna be okay, alright. Just hang in there. Hang in there, Minato, alright. Minato looked at Haruhiro, moving only his eyes. Hiro, well what? What is it? Minato, what is it? I'm sorry. Huh? What? Sorry? Why? For what? Damn it, why me? Hiro, I'm counting on you. Counting on me? On me? For what? What do you want from me? Wait, no, Minato, no, I can't. See, is everyone there? We're here. Everyone's here. Minato, we're here. Don't go. It's too bad. Don't go. Minato, you can't leave us. Don't go. Please, Minato. Minato took a deep breath, then spat it out. In that moment, Minato's eyes took on a glassy look. Shihoru brought her hand to Minato's chest. His heart's not beating. Give him CPR, Renta shouted. It was an amazing flash of inspiration. Haruhiro thought. It felt like they had solved everything, telling each other what to do as they tried to resuscitate him. For minutes, then tens of minutes, they pumped on Minato's chest after pulling out the knife, and gave him mouth to mouth. They must have kept going for over an hour. Isn't it time we stopped? Moguzo said, sobbing. I feel bad for Minato-kun. You know. Fine. Haruhiro nearly lashed out at Moguzo, but stopped himself. Fine. What do we do? Then, are you telling me we should just leave him? Are we just gonna abandon Minato? Magic, Shihoru said, lifting her face. Her eyes were swollen and bright red from inflammation. Maybe we can do something with magic. I mean, there's magic that heals wounds, after all. Yeah, Yum nodded repeatedly. Yeah, there must be something we can do. There has to be. Let's see, where was it? The priests' guilds. What was it? Temple. The Temple of Lumieris, huh? Renta wiped his tears with the back of his hand. That's enemy turf for a servant of Lord Skullhell like me. But now isn't the time to worry about that. Moguzo picked up Minato. I'll carry him. Haruhiro nodded. Okay, let's go. Anytime Renta or Haruhiro offered to take over carrying Minato, or to help, Moguzo said, I'm fine, and refused, until they made it all the way back to Alterna, and to the Temple of Lumieris in the northern district. Moguzo really did carry Minato all by himself. When they entered the temple, men wearing priest robes with the same blue lines on white fabric design as Minato stopped them. One of them seemed to know Minato, and told another man to go and find Master Honen. This Master Honen, whoever he was, came at once. He was a man built like a rock, and looked like he'd make a better warrior than a priest. When he opened his mouth to exclaim, "Oh, how terrible!" his voice was abnormally loud, too. Come to think of it, Minato had said his master had a big voice and his ears always hurt because of it, hadn't he? As Haruhiro remembered that, unable to bear it anymore, he prostrated himself before Master Honen. Please, save Minato. I'll do anything, so please, I'm begging you. You fool, Master Honen roared. Even the shining god of light, Lumieris, cannot save the dead. Minato, how could you be such a fool? I recognized you as a youth of rare promise. That is why I attended to your education with such love and care. How could you throw your young life away like this? Why, you... Renta went to grab Master Honen, but Yum said, stop that. Renta gave up easily, likely because he saw the flood of tears coming from Master Honen's eyes. Shihoru fell to the ground, sitting on the cold temple floor. Moguzo stood there unmoving, with Minato still in his arms. Now that this has happened, Master Honen's voice didn't waver, but his tears never stopped. you must at least give him a proper burial. The curse of the no-life king turns those who go unburied in the frontier into his servants. You have 5 days at most. Some have turned into zombies by the 3rd day. Haruhiro felt like laughing for some reason. It wasn't the time for laughter, and he knew that, but still. You mean you want us to cremate Manoto? Indeed, there is a crematorium outside Alterna. Once you have purified the remains with fire so they will not rise again, bury his ashes up on the hill. Can I ask something? What? I assume that costs money, too. If you cannot afford it, I will pay. No, Haruhiro sighed. It was a deep sigh. He was angry, but getting mad just seemed ridiculous. No, thanks. It's not like we don't have any money. If we don't have enough, we'll figure something out. Manoto is our comrade. They dug a hole in an empty spot halfway up the hill, and buried the bones wrapped in a white cloth there. Then, they placed a stone on top, that was just large enough, which they could still carry it. On the stone, they carved his name. After that, they carved the crescent moon symbol of the volunteer soldiers, painting it red. Trainee or not, he was still a volunteer soldier. Manoto's grave would carry the red crescent he was entitled to. Looking around, they saw other graves with the red crescent, some with the paint beginning to peel away. Many volunteer soldiers slept here on this hill. Haruhiro looked up to the tower on the hilltop with resentment. He and the others had come out of that tower. When was that? It must have been less than a month ago, yet it feels like so much longer. We came out of that tower. Really? I can't see any entrance or exit to it. Where and how did we come out from it? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore. 50 copper at the crematorium. Another 50 copper for the burial plot. 1 silver in total for the burial. A person is dead, and it cost 1 silver. Haruhiro had paid it, but he wasn't sure he should have. Manoto had been carrying 7 silver and 21 copper. They had burned his clothes with him, but they had some of his possessions, such as short staff and backpack left. What should we do with those? Do we have to do something with them? I don't want to think about it. It's too much of a bother. Manoto's dead. He's really dead. It's been less than a day. When they brought Manoto to the crematorium yesterday, the manager said they were closed for the day, so they had to come back first thing the next morning. Unsure what to do, they had turned back to the temple, where Master Hanan offered to take custody of Manoto's body until the next morning. However, they couldn't bring themselves to just leave Manoto behind. In the end, they had stayed up all night, surrounded Manoto's body which had been left in a corner of the temple. Right, none of us have slept. Maybe I dozed off for a bit, but I haven't slept properly. That's why my thoughts are kind of hazy. Even with all of us sitting here in front of Manoto's grave, it's just not sinking in. Even sitting was too much for Shihoru, who was exhausted from crying. She was leaned over on the ground, somehow supporting her body with both arms. Yum stared up into the cruelly blue sky, looking for birds perhaps. Moguzo had shrunk his big body into a ball, staring into space. Say something, Renta. Why have you been quiet all this time? If you don't talk, who will? Fine, whatever, suit yourself. Haruhiro tore some grass out of the ground. It's weird. You know, this is just weird. It is, isn't it? Guys, Renta turned towards Haruhiro, but he said nothing. He looked despondent. You know, Manoto once said. Haruhiro threw the grass away. This is like a game. I thought the same, but what kind of game? I don't know, but this isn't a game, after all, is it? It's something else. Something's weird here, definitely. This is bullshit, just bullshit. What did Haruhiro want to say? What was he trying to say? What time was it now? It was well past noon. Evening might be coming soon. There was a bell in Alterna that chimed once every 2 hours. First at 6 o'clock in the morning, second at 8 o'clock, third times at 10 o'clock, and so on. How many times had it rung the last time he heard it? He couldn't remember at all. Renta slowly rose to his feet. I'm out of here. Where are you going? Yum asked, but Renta just gave a short laugh, apparently having given in to despair. Does it even matter? Anyway, just staying here forever isn't going to accomplish anything. We can't do anything for him now. Even when Yum shouted, "You moron!" at him, Renta didn't argue back. It wasn't like him at all. Renta's going to leave us, thought Haruhiro, who chased after him. Moguzo went with him. Haruhiro stopped for a moment, turning back to look. Yum was hugging Shihoru around the shoulders. She looked to him, and nodded, or perhaps shook her head. It was hard to tell from a distance, but they would be staying here a little longer. That's what he thought she was trying to tell him. Is Shihoru gonna be okay? She's in shock. I'll bet, even more than I am. Probably, because I'm pretty sure Shihoru was in love with Monado. Renta looked like he planned to head back to Alterna. Haruhiro was about to ask him where he was going, but stopped short. It didn't really matter. Before they reached Flower Garden Street in the North Quarter, the bell rang 7 times. It's already 6 o'clock in the evening. Little wonder there are so many people outside. Renta entered the large tavern. There was a sign out front identifying it as Sherry's Tavern. Haruhiro knew the name, and that it was a hangout for volunteer soldiers, but he had only ever seen it from the outside. Monado came here to gather information sometimes, right? I left it all to him. For anything and everything, it was always Monado. I didn't do a thing, just followed after Monado, doing whatever he told me to do. Lamps hanging from the ceiling dimly illuminated the spacious tavern. Sherry's Tavern really was a large place. There was more than just the one floor. It had a second level as well, and there was an open ceiling over about half of the establishment. It wasn't crowded yet, with less than half the tables occupied, but, even so, there were probably over 100 people there. Many voices could be heard talking and laughing at all times, occasionally punctuated by angry shouts, and the spirited voices of the waitresses could be heard all over the room. Renta found an open table in one corner of the first floor and sat down. Haruhiro and Moguzo sat down with him. When one of the girls came over, Renta immediately said, 3 beers, ordering for the other 2 without ever asking them. I don't really want to drink alcohol. What do you want then? Milk? Renta crossed his arms, kicking the ground. You sound like an idiot. This is a tavern. If you're gonna drink at a tavern, it's gotta be alcoholic. But Moguzo sat hunched over, shrinking his head into his shoulders. Should we be drinking at a time like this? You don't. Now is exactly when we ought to drink. Renta sniffled and rubbed his eyes. Monado came here to drink a few times, didn't he? But, well, you know what happened to the guy. So, we should drink in his place. No, that isn't what I'm thinking. That's not quite it. But, yeah, Haruhiro rested his elbows on the table, hanging his head. Yeah, you're right. Once the beer came and they had paid their waitress, the 3 shared a toast. Maybe it was just because they were parched, but the bitter beer tasted great. Was this the same beer Monado had drank? Had he liked it? Probably because of the alcohol. Haruhiro's face grew hot and his thoughts hazy. Renta and Moguzo were red-faced too. Renta slammed down his ceramic beer mug on the table. This is the worst, I'm telling you. Seriously, I can't keep doing this. I've had all I can take. I'm not joking. It's not like I was doing this stuff because I wanted to begin with. How am I supposed to keep doing it when it means having to go through this? It's the same for you too, right? To hell with being a warrior. To hell with being a thief. To hell with being a dread knight. To hell with being a priest. I'm done. It's over. I'm out. I'm done with all of this. From today on, I quit. If you quit, Haruhiro ground his teeth. If you quit, what are you going to do? I'm not going to do anything. Who cares? Really? Is there some rule saying I've gotta do stuff? Who decided that? Even if there is a rule, I'm not gonna follow it. Okay, this isn't about following a rule or not. We've struggled to come this far as a group, because we didn't have any other choice. That's not my problem. Yes, it is your problem. Think for a second. I can't think about this stuff. It's all stupid. Moguzo interjected. Stop it, both of you. Don't fight. Okay, shove it. Renta violently pushed Moguzo aside. Besides, even if I did keep going, how the hell are we supposed to do anything? What do we do from here out? He's gone. Don't you get it? I know that. Even without you telling me, I know that much at least. Oh, you do? Well, then tell me this. How are you, the guy who kept getting injured, and needing him to help you, going to keep going? Huh, how about it? That's, for starters, you were constantly getting injured and that made him use too much magic. That's how things ended up like they did, isn't it? Renda, is that how you felt about it? Am I wrong? Have I said anything wrong here? You're not wrong. No, but, you were never any real use in battle, anyway. Always getting hurt so easily and getting in the way. Because of you. Stop. An angry voice roared out, and the tavern fell silent for a moment. Did someone just shout? Looks like it was Moguzo apparently. Haruhiro was taken aback. He couldn't believe it. Moguzo's eyebrows were raised in exasperation. Don't fight at a time like this. We don't have time to be fighting amongst ourselves. Cool your heads. Haruhiro sat back down in his chair. Sorry. No, hold on. Renta shook his head. Aren't you the one who needs to cool his head? You're way too mad. Moguzo glared at Renta, who shrunk back. Sorry, it won't happen again. Seriously, this guy's scary when you piss him off, huh? But, said Moguzo, taking a sip of his beer and then slumping his shoulders, it comes to what we do from here. Honestly, I feel the same way, I guess. Haruhiro scratched the back of his neck. Yeah, same here. When it comes down to it, for the moment, I don't want to think about it, or rather, I can't think about it. Let me just say, Renta said, tapping the bottom of his mug on the table. I didn't say what I did out of desperation. I'm saying that, after thinking it through, there's no way we can go on without him. If you count up the number of times he helped you, you've got to see the same. And, Haruhiro looked sidelong at Renta. You're going to do nothing. That's not possible, and you know it. What will you do for money? It costs money just to eat and sleep. Are you going to search for another job? Renta rested his cheeks on his palms, frowning. Well, it's an option, I guess. Maybe it would be for me. But you're a Dread Knight, aren't you? Even if you want to change jobs, you can't quit your guild, can you? Ah, did you forget? I did not forget. Yeah, me, I am a Dread Knight, and I'll always have to be a Dread Knight. Yeah, damn it, why'd I have to go and become a Dread Knight? Moguzo sighed deeply. Other work, huh? Oh, they heard a familiar voice. When they looked over, they saw a man they recognized waving at them and coming over. Oh, it's you guys. I forget your names. But, hey, it's been a while. How've you all been? Living the best days of your lives. Kikawa, Haruhiro said, blinking. I'd recognize this chatty guy's face somewhere. There's no doubt about it. It's Kikawa the playboy. But he looks totally different now. It's the equipment. He's wearing armor reinforced with metal plates, and he's got a sword with a decorative pommel hanging from his hip. Judging by the way he's dressed, did he become a warrior? Yo! When Kikawa broke into a broad grin and went for a high five, Haruhiro gave him one before really thinking about it. Kikawa plopped himself down between Moguzo and Haruhiro without hesitation. Beer! I'll have a beer over here. Beer over here. He called out his order to one of the waitresses. So, tell me, how is it? How's it going? How are you guys doing? Like, business-wise, you've been hitting up the old city of Damoro or something? I heard it right here, you know, from my man Minato. I heard. So, how's that going? It's been a while since I last saw him, but he's still annoying. Way too annoying. Haruhiro was overwhelmed by him, and, without intending to, answered honestly, it's not going at all, I guess. To tell you the truth, about Minato, he had a little something to him. No, it wasn't little. How do I say this? Wah! Kikawa stood up and shouted. Wah! Don't tell me, he couldn't have gotten himself married. Of course that's not it. Haruhiro corrected him. slapping Kikawa in the back of the head pretty hard. Kikawa's eyes nearly popped right out of his skull, but Haruhiro didn't regret doing it at the very least. That's not it, Renta said with a bitter look crossing his face. He died yesterday. You know, it was still just yesterday. While Kikawa rubbed the back of his head, moving his jaw back and forth. Dude, sorry, like, seriously sorry, Kay? I didn't mean anything bad by asking. Not really, you know? I mean, who'd have thought he'd be dead? Minato always seemed like a capable dude, in a different way from Renji, though, but, man, really? That happened to Minato. You never know when it'll happen. With people, it's the one thing you can't predict. Whoa, you're bringing it now. My beer. Okay, CHEE.US. Okay, yeah, you guys aren't in the mood, huh? It's not a good time. Well, just me then. Phew. Haruhiro twisted his head from side to side. He was intensely tired. You seem well, Kikawa. Did you get into a party? Yup. Right after that, a guy by the name of Tokimyun's party. He's a great guy, actually. Little stupid though. He's here, you know? Should I introduce you? Should I? No, I'll pass for now. You will? Yeah, that figures. Minato was your priest? Yeah, the core of the party. They say the death rate's pretty high. For priests, that is. It's easy for them to get targeted after all. Moguzo slowly turned to look at Kikawa. It is, well, duh. Kikawa knocked back his beer. Phew, where was I? Right. Priests. The enemy know that priests are healers too. So, of course they'd go take that guy out first, right? For a warrior like me, my job is, like, what? I run around putting my neck on the line just trying to defend the priest, or something? That's how it goes, basically. Moguzo clutched his head. I couldn't defend him. He was always helping me. No. Kikawa got a bit too touchy-feely with Moguzo, slapping him reassuringly on the shoulder. Don't let it get you down so bad, man. We all make mistakes, you know? We use our mistakes and errors to discover the right way. It's fine. You're good. But, Moguzo shook his head. Minato-kun will never come back. Well, yeah. Kikawa lifted up his hands like he was surrendering. Guess not, huh? But, still, here's what I think. You've just got to think about the future, don't you? I mean, I may only be able to say that because I've never lost a comrade, yeah, but, let's turn that around, okay? I can say it because I've never lost a comrade, or something, huh? It's the same. Well, anyway, stay positive, man, positive. Haruhiro lowered his eyes to the table full of ceramic mugs. I guess he means I shouldn't be looking down like this, huh? I don't have to listen to anything Kikawa says. But what would Minato do? What would he have said? Probably, even if he didn't say it directly, he'd try to create an environment where we would all become more positive on our own. Even if we do look forward, Renta grumbled. What is there up ahead for us? Our party's lost its priest. Kikawa looked like he wanted to say so what? Why not just look for one? A new priest? Hold on. Let me guess what you want to say. I know, you were about to say would any priest want to join a party of trainees? By the way, I'm not a trainee anymore, you all know. I'm a proper volunteer soldier. Wanna see the Corps badge I bought? Do you? Should I show it to you? I don't really care about seeing your stupid badge, Haruhiro said with a sigh. But, you're right. I'll bet there aren't any priests who'd be willing to join our party. I don't think that there's absolutely none. You all know, huh? You wouldn't know it from the look of me, but I've got connections, lots of them. I know a lot of volunteer soldiers, and there is one. I know one. A priest even you guys could get to join you. Renta leaned in. Who is it? Before we get to thought, Kikawa looked at each of them in turn. What were all of your names again? I've been thinking about it and, yeah, I totally can't remember. Sorry, could you tell me, pretty please? The morning still comes, huh? Thought Haruhiro. No matter who dies, the next morning comes, again and again. It was 8 o'clock the following morning, in front of Alterna's North Gate. Before the lingering echo of the bells ended, Renta shouted out, sounding desperate, "And on that note, everyone, I want to introduce you all to our new friend. It's the priest, Mary, okay? Give her a nice round of applause." Haruhiro and Moguzo did clap, at least, but Yum and Shihoru seemed dumbfounded. It wasn't hard to understand how they felt. They had been shaken awake by Haruhiro and the others early in the morning. Then they were brought here, and now this. It would be stranger if they weren't surprised at all. Even though it was her first time meeting Yum and Shihoru, Mary made no attempt to greet them. She looked strong-willed, and was actively trying to come off as prickly, so it wasn't unexpected, but even so, Haruhiro wondered whether she couldn't have handled this a bit better. Apparently not. That was almost certainly the reason why even they had been able to recruit her. Renta gestured to Mary one more time. "This is Mary-san." Shihoru bowed timidly. "Hello, ni." Yum was hesitant as well. "Nice to meet you." Even after that, Mary didn't so much as wave. She narrowed her eyes without a word, staring intently at Shihoru and Yum. Haruhiro had been observed the same way the night before. That had been hard to bear. She's cute, for starters, and not just your run-of-the-mill cute. It's not that her eyes are big, or that she has a shapely nose and lips, or that her glossy, straight hair is pretty. It's something in a dimension far above all that. I have a hard time believing she's human like us. What is it that makes me feel that way? It's probably the balance between all these things. Her little head, and her figure. With one glance, you can tell she's just different. She has that sort of aura about her. It's so powerful that, at first, I had trouble just standing in front of her, but I noticed something right away. Her gaze is cold, abnormally cold. This woman is trouble, the kind you're better off not getting close to, just watching from a distance. That's the kind of woman she is. But, sadly, Haruhiro and the others' situation left them with no choice but to recruit her. According to Kikawa, volunteer soldiers who couldn't find a party weren't common to begin with, and priests were especially uncommon. There were even fights over who would get a talented priest sometimes, so they must have been in short supply. On top of that, Haruhiro and the others were still trainees, and it seemed they had fallen behind Team Renji and Kikawa, the others who arrived at the same time as them. In other words, they were the lowest ranked group within Red Moon, and they were still crawling around at the bottom. They were in no position to get picky, whether it was Mary or anyone else. So long as they had a priest to join their party, they were good. If they didn't have someone, they would need to either give up or one of them would need to change jobs to become a priest. Mary brushed her hair up, then looked at Haruhiro. "Is this everyone?" "Yeah." Haruhiro hurriedly looked down. He had been staring at Mary. She was easy on the eyes at least. Mary wore the blue lines on white outfit of a priest. It wasn't particularly stylish, and it didn't accentuate the lines of her body, but she still looked great. It just wasn't fair. Yeah, this is everyone, with you included. There's 6 of us." "I see." Mary gave a little, laughing snort. "Well, that's fine. As long as I get my share, I don't care. Where are we heading?" "The Moro." "Yeah." Haruhiro looked to the rest of his comrades. "The mood here is not good. It's terrible, actually. Is this gonna work out okay?" "I guess. You guess." "Be clear. The Moro, the old city, hunting goblins. As for the rest, I don't know." "Fine, whatever. Well, how about you get going? I'll follow you." "Hey, you know," Renta looked up to Mary. "Couldn't you, do something about the way you talk, your attitude?" Mary's ice-cold eyes shot through Renta. No, sorry. Really, sorry, it's nothing. You're scary, Mary, way too scary. You're bad news, seriously. You live up to your reputation. According to Kikawa, Mary has a number of nicknames. One is Ill-Tempered Mary, another is Scary Mary. Mary's primarily a free agent. She's invited to parties that have no priests or not enough priests. Mary never refuses. However, she never stays with a party for long. Mary doesn't think of people as people. Apparently, the quality of her work as a priest is iffy, too. Not one of the rumors I heard was good. In any case, she was top class when it came to looks, but her personality made only little room for cooperation. Way too little. Incidentally, while she never refuses an invitation to a party, she'll shoot down invitations for a date at the speed of light. Kikawa got shot down rather spectacularly himself, I hear. I'm amazed he had the balls to ask her out. You're incredible, Kikawa. There was absolutely no conversation during the 1-hour walk to the Moro. This is tough, way too tough. Renta and Moguzo are terrified of Mary, while Yum and Shihoru view her with suspicion, doubt, and uncertainty. Why is that? Haruhiro didn't understand. I'm not sure, but Yum and Shihoru seem bewildered, and maybe a little angry. Maybe they're upset that I brought in a new priest right after Manato died. Is that it? Especially considering what she's like. Is that it? Honestly, Haruhiro couldn't say he didn't feel the same way. Couldn't we have at least waited a little longer? We never consulted Yum and Shihoru either. It's not like we had to decide there on the spot that day. I should have thought it over more. If Manato were around, he would never have just gone with the flow and let things turn out like this. Besides, it's too soon for us to come back here, to the old city of Damoro, to the place where Manato died. What if we run into them again? Haruhiro mumbled. If we do, Renta said, forcing the words out darkly, we've got to kill them. I won't be satisfied until I've cut their ears off and offered them on Lord Skullhell's altar. But, Shihoru said coldly, we can't win, not as we are now. Renta scoffed, we'll fight even if we can't win. If we get ourselves killed doing that, Yum's voice quivered. If we die like that, it'll all be for nothing. Moguzo nodded vigorously. Dying is no good. I don't want anyone else to die. Is someone? Mary started to say, then bit her lip. Going to go out, or not? I don't care which, but make it quick. Renta looked away from her, clicking his tongue in disapproval. Let's get on with it, Haruhiro. Yeah, said Haruhiro. Then a thought crossed his mind. Who was the leader of this party? Before, there was no question it had been Manato, but now, Renta wasn't cut out to lead. Moguzo wasn't the type who could pull everyone along with him, and neither were Yum or Shihoru. Then, was it him? No, he didn't have the ability to lead people either. He was too indecisive. Manato had told him as much. At the end, Manato had looked to Haruhiro and said he was counting on him. Did that mean he wanted me to take care of the others for him? But, Manato, that's impossible. I can't do it. I can't be like you. Haruhiro tried to say, let's go to the others, but it came out with a stutter. That made him feel pretty pathetic. Following the map they were still making, they walked carefully through the areas goblins often appeared in. Since Manato was gone, taking on a group of 3 would be tough. But, on today of all days, though they came across groups of 3 or 4, they just couldn't seem to find a group of 2 or less. By the time they took their afternoon break, they were all filled with impatience, frustration, exhaustion, and weariness. Besides that, Herr Wairo's stomach began to hurt. At this rate, there were so many ways they just weren't going to last. Haruhiro came to a silent decision. If they found a group of 3 or less, they will attack. They had a priest. He was sure they could manage somehow. The chance for that soon came. There were traces of a campfire in an area surrounded by crumbling walls. There, they found 3 goblins. One was clad in chainmail and carried a short spear, but the other 2 wore clothing made of cloth, one with an axe in its hands, the other one with a short sword. The well-built spear gob seemed to be in charge, with the axe gob and short sword gob following its orders. We can handle these guys somehow. First, Yum and Shihoru launch a preemptive strike on the spear gob. Me, Renta, Yum and Mary will keep the axe gob and short sword gob busy, so Moguzo and Shihoru take out the spear gob. If it's hard for the 2 of you, either Renta or I will step in to help. Once the spear gob is taken out, this will be easy. Hold on, Mary's voice was sharp. Why am I fighting goblins? Huh? Haruhiro looked daunted. Was that not okay? Huh? Why not? I don't go up front. I'm a priest. The reason should be obvious. Hey, Renta was about to snap, but composed himself. Pal. Mary's pointed glance stabbed into Renta. Pal. You? No, it's weird for me to address you like that. Mary, where's my sen? Mary, sen. A vein was pulsing on Renta's temple. Now listen, you priests carry that thing with you. That, what's it called? A priest's staff. You've got one, right? That thing's for whacking stuff with, right? Or is it just for show? Yes, Mary said, puffing her chest up and looking down her nose at Renta. This is just for show. Why you little, Mary-o-sen? Couldn't you be a little more, more, I don't know, forget it, just do whatever you want. I'd do what I want without you telling me to, you realize? Of course you would. Ha 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 ha, I figured as much. Damn it, what's this bitch's problem? Could you refrain from using such filthy words? They soil my ears. I'm so sorry, my bad. If you really don't like it, why not try some earplugs? Why should I have to trouble myself like that? Anyway, Haruhiro said, scratching his neck, I understand what you're saying. Mary will stand by in the rear until she's needed. Maybe near Shihoru would be best. Shihoru's a mage, so she doesn't go up front. That should be fine, right? Mary gave Haruhiro a look that made it seem as if she was ready to give up on him as useless. Sounds reasonable, I guess. Well, we'll go with that. Then Haruhiro felt reassured, but also upset. Why did he have to defer to her like this? She had only just joined the party today. Yes, she had more experience than Haruhiro and the others, but weren't they all comrades here? Though, that said, he didn't have the nerve to say that to Mary. She was scary. Even when they got in a circle and did their usual Faito Ipotsu ritual, it didn't really feel like they could do this. Shihoru, please, Haruhiro pleaded. And Shihoru nodded silently. Are they too upset to even speak? They both have looks of extreme displeasure on their faces. I wish they wouldn't do that. I'm no happier about this than they are. But what choice do we have? They could at least try to understand that much. If he said anything, he knew it wouldn't stop there. Haruhiro decided to bottle it all away deep in his chest. Haruhiro took point with and Shihoru following behind him. They would be in magic range soon. When Haruhiro gave the signal with his hands, Shihoru began drawing elemental sigils with her staff, and chanting in a low voice. Knocked an arrow, and pulled back on the bowstring. An elemental launched forth from the tip of Shihoru's staff. Go! Yes, it hit. The spear gob took a hit right in the chest from the elemental, and the full body convulsions made it drop its short spear. Yum's arrow missed, flying off into the distance. From behind they heard that was just awful. From Mary, Yum's knuckles went white as she gripped her bow. Don't worry about it, Haruhiro called out to Yum as he pulled out his dagger. Moguzo and Renta were already about to charge the gobs. I need to hurry out there too. We'll defeat these enemies. We'll win this. If we lose, we might die. Winning is our only option. Moguzo grunted. The axe gob and short sword gob were in his way. The spear gob was trying to use that time to get back on its feet. Renta slashed at the axe gob with a battle cry, and managed to get it away from Moguzo. But the short sword gob was more stubborn. Moguzo just couldn't throw the short sword gob out of his way. That's my job then, thought Haruhiro. Backstab. Haruhiro got behind the short sword gob, immediately stabbing at it with his dagger. The short sword gob shrieked, trying to turn around. The dagger grazed the sword gob's side. The short sword gob drew its short sword. Shigya! 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 Whoa! Haruhiro leapt backwards, hopped to the right, then backed off quickly. It was a quick little gob. Little wonder Moguzo had been having trouble with it. But, with that, the last obstacle in front of Moguzo had been removed. The spear gob thrust at Moguzo. Moguzo struck down the spear gob's short spear with his bastard sword. There were 3 one-on-one battles now. No, it looked like Yum would come help Haruhiro. She swung her machete, slashing at the short sword gob. Diagonal cross. The short sword gob lowered its hips, jumping backwards almost 2 meters to run away. Wow, it's agile. You see gobs like it sometimes. Small, with no offensive power to speak of, but with a ridiculous ability to dodge. They're always a pain to take down. It's a lightweight class gob. Their trouble, rel, act, vel, darsh, Shihoru cast Shadow Beat. A shadow elemental flew towards the spear gob. It dodged. Moguzo followed up immediately with a swing of his bastard sword, but it was a little too far. He caught only air. The spear gob stabbed at Moguzo once, and again, with it stabbing at him so much. Moguzo had no choice but to put some distance between them. It was a short spear, yes, but it was still longer than the spear gob was tall. Moguzo couldn't get in striking distance of the spear gob. On closer consideration, this might have been the first time they'd had a proper fight with an enemy that used a spear. It seemed likely that Moguzo's difficulties were stemming from that. It was a lack of experience. Ao, Renta let out a little cry and jumped backwards. He'd taken a cut to his left thigh and it was bleeding. The axe gob was swinging its axe wildly from its low stature, aiming for the lower half of the body. It looked like it was going to be another troublesome type to deal with. I'll take care of this one. You take the axe gob, Mary, Renta. Mary responded no, without missing a beat. No! Huh, why not? It's not a wound that requires immediate treatment. Suck it up. Why you? Renta wailed on the axe gob. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it. Don't get all conceited just because you're a little, okay, very attractive. This is bullshit, bullshit. Haruhiro and Yum were chasing around the lightweight class short sword gob, but they just couldn't catch it. Aren't you supposed to be in pain? Renta, I am in pain. Hatred. Renta slashed downwards diagonally at the axe gob, but it nimbly evaded him. I'm gushing blood here, you know. Of course it hurts. It hurts. God damn it. With a cry of surprise, Yum landed on her rump. The short sword gob had tripped her. Oh, crap. That's bad. Yum's in trouble. Why you? Haruhiro threw himself between the short sword gob and Yum with reckless abandon. And hey, wait. You're just running away. The short sword gob hopped away, putting distance between them. It was over in no time. Haruhiro's dagger wouldn't reach it anymore. You're all worn out, Mary muttered. And whose fault is that? Haruhiro thought. If it were Minato instead of you, these enemies would have been easy. Minato was able to tank like Moguzo, was a healer, a strategist, and our leader. If Minato were there, it might have been an exaggeration to say he was as good as hundreds of others, but it sure felt that way. Minato wasn't like you, a priest who only heals, and doesn't even do a good job of that. The gap is so wide, it's not even worth comparing the two of you. But Minato isn't here anymore. He isn't anywhere. We've lost Minato. What should we do now, Minato?